Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crime Chat. Tonight we have the full panel of the founding ladies. Let's do a sound off. I'm Regina.
I'm Hollis.
I'm Sammy.
I'm sure.
And I'm What is True?
Welcome, everyone, to Crime Chat. Ladies, how are y'all doing today?
I am fantastic. How about you, Regina?
Yeah, how are you doing?
Y'all always know what I'm going to tell you every time you ask. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have another day. I'm blessed to have another day. That's all I can say. Always blessed to wake up every morning.
I feel the same about myself. Blessed to be awake.
How about you, Sammy? How are you?
I'm doing really well, and I'm glad to be here. And thank you all for showing up.
You know
Well,
what? I noticed it's all five of us.
Yay.
Finally, we all five are together. Well, that makes sense considering how we all kind of met.
True.
Right? And how else are we going to take over the world unless we're all collaborating? I'm
Well, this
joking.
is
I'm
the case
joking.
that brought us all together, no doubt.
exactly. Yep.
It is, and
This,
it's such. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this case lives in the hearts and minds of everyone, not just us, but this is a case that there's a lot of people that care about this case.
Also, part of the reason I think it matters to us in particular, a lot of us, is because we have children. We have children, and our children, especially mine. I don't know about y'all, but I've got a 19-year-old son. So this case, it matters to me because these are our children. Once again, it's our children.
I agree. Beautiful children.
Beautiful children. And they were robbed so prematurely of the blessings that they could have bestowed upon the world, and that just breaks my heart.
It breaks mine too. It's it's disturbing that we've come to this and how unfortunate it is for all of those involved. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine the grief and the loss that these families are feeling. Like, I would hope that in some way I understood as a mother some of the grief and the loss they might be feeling, but I have to say God's been good to me and I haven't had to suffer that grief, so I can't say how they feel. All I know is that I completely support them and I give them my deepest sympathies and condolences for their loss because it's a loss to us all. And but especially for them, especially for them. So, um Hollis, would you like to lead us off and maybe a little bit about what we're going to be discussing tonight and covering with the Kohberger case?
Sure. So as everyone knows, Brian Kohberger had a hearing yesterday. It was mostly about the IGG, the change of venue, and the discovery. So we would like to watch the trial and pause when needed to maybe discuss some of the arguments or decisions that are being made as we go along through the entire trial. And then, of course, we will also be covering questions. So if there's any questions, throw them in chat because we love questions. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff in discovery that they want. So anyway, Regina, did you want to start with the IGG? Because that was the first thing or you just want to let's just start the trial. How about? It's up to you. Regina, are you there? I think she's muted again.
Well, I know that you've been collecting a lot of information on the trial, but we were looking into a few other extra tidbits too while we're waiting on Regina. Thought I'd
That's
mention it.
right. That's right. I don't want to talk over Judge John when he comes up. But there were
I
lots of
was muted. I was
I
muted
know you were. There's
again.
lots of dates that were given that they came on conclusions with, and it seems like it's going at a pace relatively reasonable, as long as they can stay on the schedule. I would hope. June of
Okay.
2025.
Ashley Jennings, Jeff.
So we're gonna go ahead and start if that's okay, Hollis, real quick.
Absolutely.
And we'll break it down as we go. So go ahead and the first part we're going to be breaking down is the investigative DNA genealogy, right?
Yeah, that's what they start discussing is the IgG right off the bat.
Okay, so let's hear that real quick, and then we'll break it down for our viewers what IgG is and everything like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll do that.
Nye and Ingrid Beatty. The proceedings, I think they are live streaming through the court's YouTube channel. So please do not attempt to record, film, or transmit during the proceedings. Thank you for that. All right, so we have some motions to address today. And I thought we should first go with the defendant's motion to allow experts and investigators access to view IgG information. If that makes sense, I think also the motion to clarify sealed order for disclosure of IgG and merges into that. So go ahead.
No sound.
Is
Okay,
it
so
unmuted? Oh,
Hollis, can you give the definition of IgG for me real quick?
It's investigative genetic genealogy.
Right. And that is what we were talking about it earlier, and you
Oh, you want
said
me to go further into it? Yes, it's
yes.
basically. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. I thought you just wanted me to give you the abbreviation. No, that's whenever you do a genealogy site, and you submit your stuff, your DNA and whatnot, to find out what you're made of and who you might be related to and whatnot. That's your genealogy. Well, a lot of sites, whether it be Me23 or Ancestry.com, in the fine print, it will tell you whether or not they allow FBI, law enforcement, whoever may need it, for the purposes of a murder crime, they allow to share that information with them. So with investigative genetic genealogy, I believe they found it through Me23, 23andMe. Yeah, 23andMe.
That's what I've come to believe as well.
Yeah, and it's basically, it's almost like it can be your aunts, uncles, relatives, cousins, fourth cousins, third cousins. They can actually find you through those systems. And by finding you through those systems, they can then say, hey, this DNA matches up with this family tree here. So that's what investigative genetic genealogy is basically. Is, I guess, they investigate the genealogy and kind up with the genetic matchings of someone that they're looking for. So read the
Right.
fine print in your genealogy if you want to be a criminal.
I have a quick question. Do either of you know, or Sammy or Char, sorry, um, if the genealogy sites, I've heard that there's only two sites that the FBI can pull from, and the rest they don't. Do you know if that's true or false?
I know that by law, some of these have a disclaimer when you go to put your DNA in, stating that this could be used, through law enforcement or a government agency, and then some of them don't.
It depends on the corporate policy and what privacy guidelines are forced upon them by their state, their country's government, and everything. And even some of these genealogical sites are out of off continent. Your testing goes for off continent. Some of these sites are even off continent. So it comes down to the company that you are providing your DNA to. A lot of these companies have clauses that they can put your information in a big database to try and do these genealogical trees and everything. And a lot of them also, you have to actually ask for the paperwork to prevent them from uploading your DNA into the IgG database, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Okay, I will read you something real quick. Y'all know how I love my Uncle Google. Okay. Police can't access the databases of direct to consumer DNA testing giants Ancestry DNA and 23andMe without getting a court order from a judge first. Most turn instead to GED Match or Family Tree DNA, the two genealogy sites that do not require a warrant to access the data. So there you go.
There you
Well,
go.
thank
Good
you.
Like
to know.
like I said, it matters what company you're submitting
Yep,
your DNA to.
that's right. Read the fine print. But like I was telling Regina, it's like literally like it's like the fourth cousin Betty Boop Kohberger. You know, she does not want her information out there. She probably does. She probably has a different last name by marriage, you know, and doesn't even realize she may even be related to this guy.
Right. Right.
She has a privacy right not to have that thrown out there if it's not going to be extremely relevant. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe Judge said it was not part of the warrant, the IgG. Now, I don't know how much that plays into whether or not, you know, it's argumentative, but we'll see.
Well, let me just say this. I haven't seen any proof from the defense that they used a site they were not allowed to get the information from. I need to see, like, and that's still, if you really want to get into a technical part of it, that's for a civil litigation. That is not for, like, I kind of feel like some of this information that they're wanting, like the Supreme Court has already ruled that, a person who remain wishes to remain an anonymous tipster can remain an anonymous tipster. And it still is just grounds to look further into something as long as they don't um as long as they do not and intrude upon someone's constitutional rights. And let's get this straight. Let's just take this into account real quick with all this IgG information. Brian Kohberger's car was reported to the hotline in the Idaho 4 homicides of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. Okay? His car was reported to the hotline. Even though his DNA from the sheath was made it quicker for them to have a second connection for the case, the connection was already made with his car. So that give them just cause to dig in the trash and get some DNA out of the trash. Because why? It wasn't like a Terry stop. We're not talking about a Terry stop that you have to have probable cause. All you got to have is a hunch to think about it, because anyone can go look in anybody else's trash for anything as long as it's a curb. So really, there's no violation in Brian's rights in obtaining the DNA from the trash that linked directly to his father and then led to the buccal swab. So I think this is all just for smoke and mirrors with them even questioning the IgG, because if you want to get to the base root of it, the person's DNA is an anonymous tipster through a database. Their identity should remain anonymous. It is not needed. It is not needed for Bryan to have been a suspect. Period. End of story. His car was reported by a credible person, a security guard at WSU campus at the end of November. It was either the 28th or 29th. So, in my opinion, the probable cause to go dig in someone's trash that wasn't even needed was already there. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. Makes sense to me.
Definitely.
Okay. So is there anything y'all want to add to that? Hollis, you wanted to break it down a little bit better or anything?
No, I think you nailed it on the head. I just want to shout out to everyone who's here. We're really happy that y'all are joining us. So, Low 12, Midwest, Sammy, Shar, What is True? Beautiful Messy Ball, Kel.
Char, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Mom. Wait, Carolina Mom,
No, I don't think so. I think you
Erica,
covered it totally.
Erica, and Wallet. Hello, Wallet.
I
Glad
think that,
everyone is here.
in my opinion, allegedly, Ann Taylor is using the IGG in a way that it was never intended to be. She's bringing it to the table as something it's not. Does that make sense? And I think it's just to further delay, and throw anything she can at the wall and see if it sticks.
I do
Well,
too.
from what her record or her reputation, she likes to find loopholes. So all these motions equal loopholes for her because that's what she's doing. She's known for loopholes. So I find that she's stalling, in my opinion. I mean, because I personally believe they should have had all the discovery by now on both sides. I just don't see the holdup. It makes no sense to me.
Right. Well, I understand now. This is another side of it, you guys. Let's go forward with it because I think that later in this court hearing, I think that Ann Taylor does make some valid points, and I would like to point that out as well. So let's continue watching if that's all right with y'all.
Thank you. Your Honor, reading the state's response, I think the state has no objection to the three named experts having access to the sealed IgG materials or the materials subject to protective order. So I think what we're really talking about is our investigative team for Bryan to have access to the IgG materials. And the state has objected to that. They've objected in part because they are not named in our motion. So I want to address that first. Your Honor, they are not named, and I can name them, that's not a problem. But the reason I didn't is based on consistency. These same investigators have had access to the grand jury materials to assist us in the case. They've had access to other things subject to protective order, and they're not named in those. They have access, there's three items subject to other protective order, and that's medical information from hospitals, that's University of Idaho records, and most recently, police procedures. They haven't been required to be named in orders in any of those. And so for consistency, I did the same thing. But we can name them if that is a sticking point. I would note that the members of the FBI that did the analysis are not named in the materials either. Your Honor, the reason why our investigators are important to have access to the IgG materials is because of the kind of case this is and the kind of investigation that we're required to launch in the case. We have to have investigators on a death penalty case, and we have them. These materials or these items in the IgG binder, those are things that we may end up filing motions in court for. In order to prepare for those, we rely on our investigators to help us with side tasks, with big tasks.
Okay, I just want to ask you ladies real quick. Do any of y'all see how Judge just propped up on his desk and looked at her? Do y'all see that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I've watched
did.
them. I've watched them the first time around. His expressions were priceless. You can kind of read his face.
He
Too
does.
easy to read.
He looks like a dad that's like, all right, kid, I'm ready to hear your side of things, but I want you to know,
That's for
sorry.
sure.
I just had to point that out. It tickles me.
with all of the tasks. We would need to utilize our experts. If our investigators can't have access to the materials, they'll have to be shut out of those meetings with those experts, and they'll have to be shut out of court proceedings that we might launch related to those materials. Your Honor, to meet our constitutional duties, in Bryan's case, his rights to have effective assistance of counsel, to have a full investigation, to have a fair trial, we have to have investigators. Those investigators are on board and have been on board, and they help us understand things that are given to us by the state. They help us find witnesses, they help us find experts, and they're necessary to be part of the conversation of what the IGG materials are and what they mean. This matters in figuring out how Mr. Kohberger ends up on the police radar and subject to these proceedings here. I know we've talked about this before, and I still don't have all of those answers. I believe today, with our experts getting access, we're going to make some headway with that, but we also need our investigators to be part of those discussions as well. Again, Your Honor, if their names appearing in a court order is an issue, that we'll do that. We'll do that. That's inconsistent with the other protective orders, but we'll do that. And they'll be subject to the protective order just like we are, and they'll abide by it just like they've done for the other protected materials they've had access to. And while we're on that line, if the court wants me to talk about the clarification, I can do that.
Let's hear from the state first. I mean, I understand the having investigators. I think what we're talking about though is just with the IGG that we have to be especially careful about, you know, who's going to have the access, what they're going to do with it. I think I agree. It's clear that the state has no objection to the three experts that you've named. So I don't think that's a problem. But let me go to, but Ms. Jennings? Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's correct, Your Honor. And Your Honor is familiar and aware of the materials that we're discussing, and you're also aware of the sensitive nature of those materials. The state is really just following the court's lead in your protective order, where you named specifically who on the defense team would be allowed to have access. It follows that if we're going to expand that access, that those individuals need to be specifically named. And it's really going to be the only way the court can have control of any unauthorized dissemination, is to know exactly who was privy to what was enclosed. So at a bare minimum, we need to know who it's going to be given over to. Your December 29th sealed order also said that any further dissemination of the materials or the information contained within the materials, including to any investigator or experts, must be approved by the court after a showing by the defense as to why such individual needs the information. In the defense's motion, their stated reasoning is, quote, to investigate how and when Mr. Kohberger was identified as a suspect, end quote. State maintains they don't need access to all of that highly sensitive information. To satisfy that purpose, that is laid out in the November 28, 2023 letter from the FBI to the state. So we would ask that, one, they be named. If they are granted access, that it be to that letter.
Hi, I just want to say shout out to Tattooed Rebel. Hello, my dear friend. I'm so glad you're in here and checking us out and stuff. If I could get my lovely, lovely mods to share Tattooed Rebel's link to his channel in chat, that would be so amazing, you guys. He covers a lot of cases that some of us don't even have the nerve to cover, and I applaud him for that. And I would just like to share his channel with everyone. If that's okay, if we can get that up there, I would so appreciate it, my lovely mods. I admire Tattoo Rebel, and he's a very good person, and he's got a very big heart. And I appreciate what he does for some of these cases that no one else is, like I said, willing to cover. He does a phenomenal job, you guys. Um, and he also covers a lot of the cases that are breaking and stuff, but he breaks it down, you guys. And I think y'all should go check him out. We love you, Tattooed. We love you, Rebel. Okay, sorry.
And that the balance of the materials be protected. And we would ask that you follow the proposed language in the state's response from February 9th to ensure further protections of the materials.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Sailor?
Well, Your Honor, I know what letter Ms. Jennings refers to. And I think our experts should have access to the actual materials. That letter is a summary. It's a police summary. Our duty is to investigate police work. We do that in every case. And with our heightened duties in a death penalty case, our investigators should have access to the entire record. Our investigators understand what a protective order is, and they'll abide by that protective order. Again, if you want them named in any order allowing them access, that's fine. That's just fine with me. It's most important that they have access to all of the materials. The summary contained in the FBI's letter isn't the totality of the materials. It doesn't show some of the particulars about things that were happening on certain dates. And that's what's important to put into a timeline so that we can try to understand how the state did its work in this case.
Well, one of the issues with this IGP is relevance at all. And so the way I'm viewing it is maybe it needs to go on steps, maybe where it's justified with the relevance or the potential of relevance for some of that information, because from the very beginning, the state's position has been it has no bearing on the case. It will not have any bearing on trial. But I allowed the access to what I thought was potentially relevant, and to allow your experts now allowing your experts to view that information. So let me just kind of move into the other clarification, because I also understand, particularly.
Okay, I would just like to break down a little bit where Judge is, why this is so controversial, is because whenever someone is an anonymous tipster, the Supreme Court has ruled they have a right to their anonymity and for that information not to be put out into the public. It is a protection afforded to whoever the family member was. It's an affording to their constitutional rights. So that is why this conversation is happening. Would any of you ladies like to add to that?
No, I agree with you 100%, Regina.
Definitely, I do too. It's an interesting part of this case that I've never
Yes.
been exposed to, and a great learning process.
I agree. It seems very technical, I guess, is what the word I'm looking for. It seems like there's a lot to it. And like you just said, the constitutional rights of those being protected. I understand that part, but I'm just confused why it's taking so long with the IGG, is all, I guess.
I think it's just a privacy issue. And the state wants to know who they're going to turn it over to. And I don't know if the defense knows who their expert witnesses are yet. So I don't even know if they can name who they're going to send it over to, if that makes any sense.
Right. Right.
I think there's an reoccurring issue within all of this hearing is that it's like they really truly want to know the names of anyone and everyone who's going to have access to this information and when it's released to them, who it's released to, because they want to hold people accountable if anything gets leaked.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
That
Because I
makes
will
sense.
tell you, it does include, if I'm not mistaken, it includes other information, your health information, they get everything on you. So it's a
Hollis.
lot of privacy stripped from someone who has nothing to do with their part in being related down in lineage to this person.
Yeah. That so this person's information, not only that, you guys, but if there is a real debate here about privacy, think about it. If you were willing to put your information on a database to try to help them solve these crimes as a willing participant, but you wanted to remain your anonymity, just like I'm sure this person wants to, don't you think that should be protected? Isn't that going to affect people wanting to donate their DNA to try to help solve crimes? Think about it. I mean, really think about it. That it'll limit access to justice.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, most people do it because they're trying to find their lineage, what countries they came from, their family histories and their backgrounds. That's why people give it up. But
I don't know if somebody knocked on my door right now and said, um, "I we really need a DNA sample to see if," I would definitely do it.
I'd
I,
open my
I
mouth in a heartbeat. I'd spit in a cup. I
yeah,
got
I
nothing
would.
to hide.
Yeah, me either. And if somebody did something that I'm related to, then they need to be held accountable. That's how I feel about it. But that's just me. That's my opinion. But yeah, because
That's my part that I do agree with is that I would hope that my information brought justice and knowledge and peace, if that makes sense, peace with obtaining that information. But I don't want like I can understand people not wanting to know that they're related to that person and wanting to remain their anonymity. Because
right,
y'all
right,
know Brian Kohberger's entire family is under scrupulation.
right, they've lost jobs and
exactly. Because in my opinion, I kind of think I'd want to protect my husband and my kids from paparazzi, from news reporters, from all of that. If I had a fourth cousin in Timbuktu that committed a crime, yeah, you can get my DNA and find that it's a genetic matchup to my family tree. That's fine. But I don't
right,
really want you to know what I'm predisposed to in my health. I don't want you to know our names, the addresses. All of that needs to stay private. I don't think it's going to make or break their case. I think if they can just prove that they did get it from a genealogy website and show how they proved it and show the matches and black out the name of the person, it can be protected in privacy. But I
But
think
what's
they're arguing back and forth they're lawyers. That's what they do.
released at some point who the genetic match came from in this case?
I think
Regina?
someone's muted.
The person's genealogical match that was used to find Brian Kohberger is nothing more than a tip data. It's like someone calling in anonymously and saying, uh, in the Idaho 4 case, you guys need to go check out this dude.
Okay,
And they are protected by the Constitution to remain that anonymity
great.
because they are nothing more than a tool for the the law enforcement to be able to use tips to go look in the right place. Does that make sense?
Does make sense, yes. Thank you for clarifying.
And so just like another anonymous person that calls in and gives a tip to law enforcement, the person's DNA that they used in this genealogical site is still protected as an anonymous source.
But I will tell you, they did match it up through the paternal father of Bryan Kohberger.
Straight out of the trash.
Yeah, that must have been what I had heard. They matched it from the father out of the trash.
I know that I'm fixing to submit my DNA because I have got like Sicilian, Italian, American Indian, Irish, and German in me. And I really want to know where my temper comes from. So I'm doing it for a dumb reason. But honestly, if it helps them later down the road figure out somebody that's killing people or hurting people, so be it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I did mine to find out my genealogy because we have a family tree and whatnot. And I don't care. If they find a criminal from it, that's fine. You know what I mean? But I would want my privacy protected if it was such a huge case like this. If it affected my children and my husband and the
Oh, yeah,
calmness of our life, I would
for
have to say,
sure.
okay, I have some restrictions for you to use this. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe the person just wants to know who the information is going to, and it's just that's that. And I don't know if Ann Taylor has her expert that to know who's it going to or not yet. I don't know if they're just playing lawyers or if they're just, really having an issue over this factor.
Exactly. That it's yeah. That's I feel like if not only that, but really think about it, you guys. If someone you know or someone you love is doing other people like that, don't you want to help put it to a stop? That's the thing where I get caught up. That's because I
Unfortunately,
know.
oops, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, in society today, um, it doesn't work like that. We're constantly looking for. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. I lost what I was going to say. To be honest with you, I'm
We
having
love
a.
you, beautiful. We'll see you in a little bit.
It's just unfortunate that we've come to this in society. In general, like, um, it's instead of the defendant being held responsible for himself, we're going to um, dissect and destroy family members that probably don't approve of what he's done or possibly done. And they're victimized. And that happens all the time, every day. We're all convicted of others' crimes, regardless of if it's, you know, mom, I lost my lunch money. Well, no, really, you didn't. You paid for somebody else's lunch and you went without lunch, and that's great. But, it's just weird. I'm sorry. I'm not making any sense. I'm rambling.
No, you're making sense to me. You're making sense to me. But yeah, I think I honestly believe that this person's anonymity deserves to be protected. I mean, they've got that constitutional protection, and that's why Judge is being so strict about this with who gets this IGG information. So I just thought we would go a little more into depth on that. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, ladies, all of you, for responding to that.
And you know what else, Regina? I want to add this in because I just remembered this tidbit. For the holidays this past year, one of my teenage daughters wanted to do her ancestry.com, and so I bought all three of my kids an ancestry.com kit. So their information is out there as well. So it's just, I can see totally why you would not want a big case like this to know your DNA matched down the family line just because you happen to enter it in genealogy. But I do agree that there's a way to prove that they got it, to prove that your DNA will help solve this crime.
But isn't the knife sheath out?
Yes.
So that's the other thing. Why are we doing all of this if that's the only DNA they have of his?
I feel like this is a moot point, what they're arguing, because he did a buccal swab and it matched the knife sheath.
Right.
9
But
octillion to 1. Let's
it's
also take
because,
that.
they're trying to argue, how did you zero in on him? Well, the University of Washington security guard took down his license plate because they were on the lookout for an Elantra. Other things played into play when they did the sheath analogy and sent it off to Texas to the special lab that would do the IgG that did match him up. Then they were like, okay, we definitely need to keep an eye on this cat. Then they followed him when he drove all the way across country and was doing his little, wearing his gloves, digging the garbage and throw his garbage away across the street. That's when they took that garbage, and that one matched to his father, being like what Regina said, the number was definitely to the son of Mr. Kohberger. Then they did the raid and did the buccal swab, and it was a match. So this is like apples and oranges to me right now, and I just see them lawyering.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree. Uh-oh, we lost what is true.
I'm I'm curious to see now that they have Bryan Kohberger himself, how much of his DNA is actually going to be the DNA on everything else. Very interesting.
Yep, that is very interesting. And with that, ladies, I think we can get back to the breakdown and a little bit more of the video. Good points. Very good coverage, ladies. Thank you.
Relevance mitigation. Okay, what your investigators need to cover. They likely have to have contact with Mr. Kohberger's family, and that we're not. I don't think we're talking about that kind of investigation. I mean, that is your responsibility. It's also your responsibility to dig in wherever you have to. I mean, I think you're required to do that. So my balancing responsibility is to keep it in control to some degree. So I guess what I'm asking is that I have some justification for.
What if I told you that instead of setting up a green screen, you can just click a button into script and get the
Making contact with certain families that may have no bearing whatsoever on the case, unless it's in mitigation or something like that. Now,
Backstage.
DNA issues, especially, I mean, maybe especially in the IgG, it has to have some relevance if there's some context, okay, that connects to the case itself. That's how I'm looking at it. I might be wrong, but so you can respond. Okay.
All right, we're talking about a couple of different things here. With our request for clarification, I was talking specifically about people that are already known to our team that we may be in contact with. Bryan's direct family, parents, sisters, aunts and uncles.
And
Those
can I interrupt you just for 1
Sure.
second? That has no relevance to the IgG information that you were given.
Those are people we already knew before.
Okay.
So I want clarification that I can continue to talk to the Kohberger family.
Yes.
I want to make sure I'm not running afoul of court order. I want to be
appropriate.
I want to be really clear who I'm asking for to have access to the IgGs. It's not our mitigation investigator. That our mitigation investigator, I think the court heard me talk about going 3 generations back to do her work. That's required under the ADA. I'm not talking about her. She wouldn't have access to this. I'm talking about our criminal investigators dealing with the innocence space for Bryan. Those are the people that I think should have access to the same materials under the same protective order. They're not doing the generations back. None of the IGG materials would be used for that part of the mitigation work. She's doing her own thing, her mitigation investigator, looking backwards as she's supposed to at the things she needs to. That's not the IGG materials. So putting aside that investigator and thinking of only our criminal investigators that are going to be dealing with our innocence phase of the case. Those are the investigators that I'd like to have access. They're the investigators that participate in the meeting with our experts. They're the investigators that help us put the timeline together to understand different things that were happening in the case before Bryan's name was ever spoken by anybody. And we're missing that big piece about why was Bryan's name spoken and how does that connect to the other pieces that we have.
Okay, I would just like to pause and Taylor right there. I'm calling Cap. I'm calling Cap because Bryan Kohberger has been on the radar since the WSU security guard reported his call to the tip line, strictly set up to report tips of the white car involving the Idaho 4 investigation.
Exactly.
What do you guys think?
Exactly, Regina.
So true.
It
So
was
very
way
true.
before that.
Agree.
Okay,
She's
I
got her
just,
facts wrong. And plus, she's calling him. Is it normal protocol in a court of law to call the defendant by his first name?
yes, actually.
Um,
It's to normalize him, make him more human.
um, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It
The
just seemed
state
odd to
probably
me.
won't do it. You'll notice the state probably will not do it. But the defense will try to put his name out as many times as they can say it.
Yep. In a normalized setting, as in Bryan or the defendant. I mean, it's their job to try to make him look softer, and it's all I mean, this stuff
Smoke
is
and
down to
mirrors.
mathematics and science of what to do. So, yep,
Yeah. They actually
yep,
have people who study things like that then.
correct. All right.
Good to know. Good
Yep.
information.
Yes, very good. Thank you for the question. So,
That's what our criminal investigators are going to do. They're not looking at IGG materials, if allowed, to do any of the mitigation work. That's separate and apart. So I want to make sure that that's really clear. Also, when we're talking about whether something is relevant or not, I think that we're thinking of the standard for information to come out in court. That's not what I'm talking about. The court found that the IGG information was material under the discovery rules to the defense and allowed us to have access to some. It's for that same purpose and under that same rule that we're asking the court to allow our investigators to have access to the same materials. Whether or not any of this is something that comes into the court or into trial, that's a question to be answered later. I can see how, I think, this is why I'm really happy to have our experts involved, but I can see a way that there may be a motion practice that happens that relates to this. I'm not there yet.
That's where I am.
I'm
Because if you have these experts, okay, go through this. I've been through all this information. And so if you can go, using your experts, and your experts kind of can tell me and the state that you need to investigate particular people, okay, that were involved in this, then we can have a hearing about it. But I'm not quite ready to be convinced that without getting this information,
I'm sorry, everyone. Can we please all get a prayer chain started in chat for Linda Robertson? Thanks, you guys.
From the experts that we're gonna find some pathway, okay, that's gonna be helpful to Mr. Kohberger.
If, I mean, this is
I
your
don't know.
courtroom, so if that's what you want to do, we can. I'm here, we waited a while to come to this hearing. I'm asking for it all with a protective order. If we do it the other way, we can do it. It's just everything takes time. And if that's the preference, that's okay.
Gotta love commercials.
The court knows and would order us to not reach out to any of the people in this material, and we wouldn't do any of that. If we have a motion to file that references any of the content of the materials, that would be filed under seal. These are sealed items. If there was a hearing, I would guess the court would have a chance to look at the filings before granting me a hearing and hear from the state, and that would be sealed. I'm not asking our investigators have access to run out and start interviewing people. I'm asking they have access to not be shut out of conversations, considering what this means and how our client came to the attention of law enforcement, and to plug things into the timeline of us trying to understand how we got from November 13th to December 29th. That's it, not to go out and try to talk to people. I can just see that there's a potential motion to be filed, but that wouldn't be contacting anybody at all. That would be a motion for the court.
That's reassuring. I mean, that's one of the concerns. I mean, pulling a lot of other people into the case that, are completely innocent and don't even have any connection to the situation. So let me go back to Ms. Jennings. Do you have any response to any of this?
No, Your Honor, I'll just reiterate that Ms. Taylor keeps discussing their ability to just understand the timeline. Again, you're very familiar with the materials. Understanding the timeline and how we got from November 13th to December 29th is all laid out in that letter. None of the other materials are going to answer their questions regarding the timeline. So ask that they be given access to that, named investigators to that letter.
Thank you. You may remember a few hearings in the past that the state from the very beginning said there was no, that played no I don't know how to even, it wasn't, when I asked them in the hearing, did you use the IDG, any of the information of the IDG to get the warrant, to get Mr. Kohberger's DNA, that was not part of it. So in terms of the time frame, don't know that it's that complicated, because a lot of what happened in the time frame happened before that. Now, that's up to you to dig into that, obviously, but there was a lot of information in the letter too, just their sequence of using the IgG at all. So we're going to have to sort this out, obviously. But going back to what I'd like to do is just get some justification for digging in deeper, if necessary. And I'm not sure it's necessary, but I'm going to keep an open mind about that. So for right now, I would say, let's just get your experts looking at the IgG stuff and exactly what they can read from that. And we'll go from there. Okay. Now, with regard to your clarification, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that your investigators can't contact people that they've already contacted, without relying on the IGT information. Does that work for now?
Yes, Your Honor. Our mitigation expert has done her own family tree based on her work, and she has nothing to do with the IgG material. She's not an expert that would have access to that. She's not named. So she needs to keep doing what she's doing as far as her work goes. And I think the proper clarification is that the IgG materials will not be used to develop any investigative leads.
I think that's fair. And what Ms. Jennings proposed in language in their response to your motion, is that something that you would object to at this point? I'm sure you probably read that language.
I did read it. It's a little bit less straightforward, but I think it covers it. It allows me to continue to speak to the people I'm speaking to and that I need to speak to that are on my list.
Okay. Anything else about that?
No.
These issues. Okay, Ms. Jennings?
No.
Okay, great.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
No.
No.
Okay.
I have been with Anchor for about 7 years now. The job provides steady.
Okay, the next question I had is, I know that Mr. Kohberger filed for permissive appeal to the Supreme Court. And I just wondered what you know about that, because I have heard nothing about that. I know it was filed.
I know the states filed their objection, and that's the last that I recall seeing about it.
Okay. So at this point, we don't know if the Supreme Court is going to take it. Okay, we don't know. You know anything else, Mr. Thompson?
Not other than the state's response was filed by the appellate division of the Attorney General's office. And I think we're just waiting to hear from the Supreme Court at this point.
Correct, Your Honor. We're just waiting to hear from the Supreme Court. I can tell you there's no deadline in the rule for them. They didn't include a deadline for themselves. And in my experience, it can take anywhere from a couple weeks to a month or so. So at this point, we're just waiting to hear.
So I don't know the answer to this. If it's filed, does that pause what we need to do here, or do we just pause it only when they pick it up?
My read of the rules, Your Honor, is the latter, that we continue as we are unless and until they decide to take it, and then they would decide at that point what exactly is paused and not paused.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about that, Ms. Taylor?
No, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Thompson?
No, sir.
All right, I think we're now to schedule. Starting with, there was a request on change of venue, maybe late April, you were saying.
Yes, Your Honor, either that last week of April, I think it starts the 29th and 30th, or the first or second week of May for the actual hearing is when we'd request. And we would ask that we have until maybe the second week of April to get our initial briefing in, and then the state's response and our reply after that.
So what are you thinking would be the hearing? Like, give me a day or a week.
I would say that first full week of May, maybe that's May 5th or May 6th.
All right, Thank you. Okay. Beatty, Ben? Right?
Your Honor, we're asking the court to either deny this motion for change of venue as premature or to set a hearing date closer to the trial date when that trial date gets set. And the reason for that is when courts look to change of venue and whether or not that's appropriate, the courts look to affidavits that have been filed. Importantly, they look to what jurors say, prospective jurors say during the voir dire process. Another thing that
maybe testimony for the hearing. Was that right, Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, you're right. The motion was to put everybody on notice that we'd like to have this addressed. We do intend to have a presentation for the court. We do intend to have briefing for the state. I anticipated we'd get that scheduled today. But no, I didn't file the motion. I filed it to put everybody on notice that it's coming, and I think we need to address it. I think we need to address it before a trial setting. It doesn't make sense to set a trial, get right up to it, and then have to have everybody who's under subpoena rescheduled and have to have the public and the families of everybody disappointed because we're going to reset it at the last minute. So I think we should take care of whether or not the court should change venue sooner rather than later, especially given the length that this trial is anticipated to go. We'll need to schedule a courtroom either here or in another county in Idaho. I mean, we'll need some advance notice to get that.
Okay, I just want to get, if I can, everyone in chat, I want your opinion. Do you think that a change of venue is going to matter in his trial? Do you think
I
it's
do
going to
not.
matter?
I don't. I don't because it's already got worldwide attention, never mind nationwide.
Everyone put a 1 in chat if you think that it's going to affect his case being moved, and put a 2 if you don't. No, no. Everybody says no, they don't. 2. 2. 2. Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay. I just thought I would poll that real quick. Well, we got 1. We got a 1. We got a 1.
Wallet Harris.
All right. Back to the business of it.
That done, because it'll take a long time to try this case.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you, Ms. Beatty.
And Your Honor, the state is asking for a briefing schedule so that we're not in a situation where the state is learning for the first time during a hearing what experts the defendant might be calling and what their arguments are. We would ask that all of that information be disclosed prior to hearing, including the CVs of any experts that will be testifying.
Well, that's certainly what I would expect. But it's quite sticky, right? To think, you're going to wait until ready to seating the jury, which is probably a 2-week process in this case, and then figure out, hey, we can't see the jury, so we have to move the trial. At the same time, how do you really know if there's some prejudice without trying to see the jury? It's really a catch-22.
And all of the logistical concerns that Ms. Taylor is describing are totally correct. The problem is that is what the law requires, and that is what the case law says. The case law does contemplate that. So certainly it's correct to note that there are going to be logistical challenges to that, but that's what the case law requires. But even if the court weren't inclined to wait until we're actually going through the voir dire process, at a minimum, I think it would be appropriate for the court to look to some jury questionnaires and at least go through that process.
Jorge has always put the ones he loves first. But when it comes to caring for his teeth,
Okay. This morning I was looking at State versus Haddon, where that was, you're probably very familiar with that, but that's Court of Appeals case, 2012, I believe. And there was a request to change venue well before the trial. The judge denied that, and then it came up again when they were trying to seat the jury, and then the judge denied that at that point. But kind of a double step to figure out if it was necessary. I've been struggling with this, for months, and so it's hard to know. Now, that doesn't mean that one of the parties can't present evidence, and the standard is kind of squishy, in my opinion, but they can provide that kind of information well before the trial. At the same time, I want to make sure that the state has the opportunity to respond to whatever information the Mr. Kohberger is going to present. So now I'm scratching my head about, well, is May, first week of May, does that allow enough time? Does that allow it enough time for you, Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, I think it does. I can present the information to the state. I can have my briefing and I can have affidavits and let them know of any witness that I want to call. I can do that probably by the beginning of the second week of April. And that would give them, if we do this in May, that would give them ample time to read it over and respond to what we intend to present.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty, what are your thoughts?
Your Honor, as far as the duration of time between the briefing and the hearing, the state has no concerns about that. The state would just have concerns about those factors that the courts require us to look to as far as the timing of the hearing compared to the timing of trial. But as far as a briefing schedule prior to the hearing itself, that timeline makes sense to the state.
Well, let's explore that just for a moment. Because I've been thinking about the setting of trial, well, and also for months, but I listened very carefully to Ms. Taylor and Mr. Thompson at our last hearing, and I really, it wasn't clear that I'm not really happy about setting the trial in 2025. It seems so far away. Now, it's not just, doesn't just affect Mr. Kohberger and his defense, but there's a lot of other considerations. So I am trying to be fair and realistic, okay, about when we could really be ready for trial. Now we want to do it once, okay? So let me go first to you, Mr. Thompson, about when. I know that it's been complicated, the discovery. I mean, you have these different agencies, FBI, state police, the state lab. We've got Moscow Police Department, Latah County, Pullman Law Enforcement, Pennsylvania Law Enforcement. And I think you mentioned it's hard to get all this stuff together. And that is one of the things that has delayed setting the trial, not to mention the motions about the grand jury procedures, also the issues about the investigative genetic genealogy issues. And I'm kind of curious, okay, when do you think that you will be completely finished with providing discovery to the defense?
Judge, most current projection that we have would probably be at the end of the summer. The majority of the discovery has been provided. That's not to say that Mr. Kohberger has been able to, and his defense team been able to digest it all, because it is substantial as an understatement. We are still awaiting information that the defense both wants and needs to have, and we're going back through all of this discovery to make sure that nothing's been overlooked. We have 2 members of our team, an attorney and a legal assistant, who are essentially assigned full time to that task. And that's projected. We got from them. It could be up to 6 months, which would put us with initial discovery completion at the end of August, 1st of September of this year.
Because last time you were talking about August for the trial.
Sure enough, and that's what we had hoped for. And when we filed our motion for trial setting scheduler back in December a couple months ago, we felt that was realistic. And as we are looking at where we are right now, I'm not sure that it is. We know that the defense has already indicated that just on the death penalty alone, they will be filing multiple motions, and they've been very lengthy. We've seen the same filings in the Nez Perce County homicide case that recently resolved. Those I could see taking a couple months in and of themselves to address, in addition to motions that actually directly relate to the merits of this trial, discovery, motions of limine, and that sort of thing. Our team met again this morning with our companions from the AG's office here in Moscow, and we actually have a proposal to make to the court for a trial date and a scheduling order, if Your Honor is interested.
I'm very interested. I'll tell you before you say anything about that.
Yes,
I was looking at whether or not it was realistic and fair. Okay, trying to be compromising to some degree. I think it was March 3rd, 2025.
Well, Your Honor, just happens to be in pink highlight on my ad here, March 3rd, 2025 for trial.
Okay, I had no idea. I wasn't reading your mind or anything, but I thought that's about the mid. And I remember, Ms. Taylor, that you said that would be the soonest you could be ready.
And sometimes I don't know how to turn on.
And that was if everything went right from that point.
And I remember that.
And
too.
it hasn't. But I'll hear what their proposals are.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Judge. So we would propose that the court set March 3rd of 2025 as the start of trial. We would propose a September 6th, 2024 preliminary discovery deadline that would include exhibits known at that time. November 8th, 2024 for the defendant's discovery deadline that would give them a chance to respond to any last minute discovery that comes out from the state. February 7th of 2025 for the state to disclose any basically reply or rebuttal to what we've learned from the defense discovery. That would include rebuttal experts. The defense's deadline would also necessarily have to include their mitigation evidence. We would suggest the court consider a final pretrial conference, kind of the pretrial wrap-up details conference for the week of February 12th to 16th, 2025. Since the death penalty related motions are already known and they aren't dependent on discovery, we would ask that any death penalty related motions defense have be filed by September 6th of this year, that the state have until October 11th to respond. The defense can then reply by October 25th and schedule a hearing during the week of November 4th through the 8th of this year. So we can get that wad of 12, 18, however many of those motions are going to be filed, we can get that handled. We would suggest that the court direct the jury questionnaires, if we can't agree on one, that the record suggestions from the state and the defense be to the court by November 1st of this year. That would give the court the opportunity to finalize a jury questionnaire that the court is comfortable with, and it can be ready at the start of the next calendar year, which is when the next jury pool would be polled or would be drawn. And the court can, at that point, get questionnaires out to an initial panel and can assess in a timely fashion are we really going to have venue issues in the early part of next year as we approach March 3rd? We propose that jury instructions exhibit lists be exchanged by January 31st of 2025. And finally, as to pretrial motions, which would be case-specific motions in limine and those sorts of things, the deadline for filing, that would be November 22nd of this year, with the understanding that parties could file them early. And the state already has been developing a list of various pretrial motions in limine that we think we'd like the court to consider, and we can file those early. But the deadline would be November 22nd, responses by December 13th, replies by December 20th, and then schedule a hearing on any of those pretrial motions sometime during the week of January 6th through the 10th. And I think
you have to write that down.
I have it all written down.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. And we can get it to you in writing. That's not a problem.
Okay. Ms. Taylor, so if things aren't going perfectly, of course they never do.
They never do, Judge. They never do. And I'll say it again. Death is different. This is a capital case. I've heard the court say the court only wants to do it once. I've heard the court ask, what can I do to speed things up? I need discovery. I need all of the discovery. I need the things that we've asked for. I need to not have to fight in motions to compel for things that was done on behalf of the state by the FBI that ends up being used against Bryan or used in the investigation. I need that stuff. I need, when I ask for something, I need to get it rather than have to go back and ask and ask and ask again. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill Thompson. I'm just not. I think he tries his very best, but I think he's hampered by the agencies and the information he gets from them. I can give you some examples. We asked for x-rays. We were told they don't exist. They're listed repeatedly in reports. We asked for them again. And I'm not.
Okay. Hot topic point. X-rays.
Indeed.
Well, can
Y'all
I
heard that.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Because I think everyone pretty much agreed in chat. A change of venue would, I don't think a lot of people think would change the outcome of this trial. And I absolutely agree with that. And then I realized people were saying, but you know what? Moscow is a small town. This should be moved to a bigger town because it is such a high profile case.
And
So
they're going to have to accommodate a lot of media, a lot of witnesses, a lot of
now,
family members.
and
I do agree with that aspect.
And I have a question about that because I've heard people mention Boise, Idaho. Now, if it were to do a change of venue, does that mean Judge John Judge would not be the sitting judge anymore?
He would not.
Okay.
Well, it depends. It depends on if they move it to a bigger town within his district. And
because I do want him to stay the judge on this.
I do too.
Trial.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
But I'll tell you what, and we all know it, it didn't make one darn bit of a difference whether OJ got trialed in Timbuktu, in LA, or in, Georgia, any state, anywhere. I think I didn't agree
Beautiful,
with the verdict,
beautiful Missy Ball says typically the judge follows the case. So let's be hopeful of that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
I'm sure she's right.
So I'm okay. I mean, I do think they do need more room. I don't think they should inundate that college town with the trauma of having the trial there, although that sounds kind of silly. But if you take it to a bigger city, it will accommodate the magnitude of probably, media and all the chaos that's going to follow this. But it is going to, it will put a lot of people from Moscow out of town. But I mean, I want it to be a fair trial. I don't want there to be any reason for them to backtrack on this. And maybe had O.J. Simpson's trial been moved out of L.A., out of the celebrity limelight, it would have had a more proper verdict. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I would like them to change venues just because I feel like if they do stay there, they're leaving themselves open to for appeals down the road. So that's what I think.
I know that people that I know in Nampa, Idaho, as well as Boise, are chomping at the bits if they move it to get on on the jury panel.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful messy ball
Oh,
says in
man.
chat, Judge Boyd followed Lori Vallow. Thank you, beautiful messy ball, so much.
Thank you so much for clarifying that for me.
Okay, so Regina,
Yes.
you were discussing these X-rays. Let's get back to that. That one floored me.
Yes.
Well, I'm just gonna say my theory, my suspicion of the X-rays that yes, everyone you heard that right, X-rays, and Taylor is talking about would be in regards to and trigger warning in regards to X-rays post-mortem, that would show injury detail and stuff like that. Because a lot of times, trigger warning, whenever victims are stabbed to death, they have injuries to their bones from the blade that penetrates them.
And also, don't forget, a lot of times the tip of a trigger warning, the tip of a blade after multiple stabbings will break off and remain in the person's body.
But we don't
Yeah,
know that that knife was
that's
broke off.
something secondary. That is secondary and circumspection to that. But I can't help but wonder the same thing, Hollis, because it is true that a lot of times blades will break off, but at the same time, this is a blade that was intended for the use of harming people, and
But
is.
I
But
did
I
look
do
it
see
up,
that it might
and
be possible.
I did look it up, and it's kind of like after you've hit trigger warning, after you've hit so much bone in so many bodies or in so many animals, even a K-bar knife, the tip can break off. And if it's found in a victim with an X-ray, they can actually, if they find the weapon that has the tip missing, they can do a metallurgy test, and it will actually show this part of this tip of this knife matches the metallurgy exact composition made up of this weapon that has the tip missing off of it.
Right, but at the same time, you have to take into account, just like beautiful Missy Ball said, um, it is standard, especially with an unknown cause of death or a known violent cause of death, especially to do X-rays. I mean, it's pretty much a standard practice to do X-rays on everyone
On the bones, yeah,
deceased.
because it can also tell you like what kind of weapon what might have been used, the action of the weapon in the bones. So those X-rays are pretty important. So she has not gotten any X-rays. Is that what she's saying?
I believe that's what she is saying. Yes,
And I
And
agree.
yet,
And she should have those, in my opinion.
I completely agree. I completely agree.
and yet, if there is no, if the weapon itself has not been found, then why would the X-rays be relevant of a tip of a neck of a knife?
Good
Do
question.
we know
All
what are
I
they
can,
what
I've
are they
gotten.
asking?
Uh, the answer to that would be sure the X-rays would still be relative to show that injuries were likely caused by the same weapon.
So the X-rays can determine that.
Yeah, because
I
the bone
Yes.
see.
will, like the bone will show if, if someone would just stab you in the arm and that tip is going to penetrate your bone versus maybe taking a golf club and smashing it up against your arm. They can kind of tell by the X-ray of the bone.
Well,
Was
it's
it
even
blunt
deeper than
force
that.
trauma? Was it
It's
a
even deep.
stab? Go ahead, Regina.
It's even deeper than that because they'll be able to conclude, like, was it a serrated blade injury to these bones or a straight edged blade to these bones? Because serrated edge will leave scrape marks, not just the cut line. So they will know whether it was a solid edged blade or a broken up tooth blade. It will show in the detail and stuff as well. I just wanted to put that out there. Trigger warning, you guys. Sorry.
But
No, you're
it's
right. You're
still
right, Regina.
it still doesn't say that it was a K-bar knife, right? It could be any jagged edge knife used, or is that not so? I mean, they can get that detailed, Regina. I mean, I don't know, so I'm just asking.
Well,
Yes,
no, it'll show in correlation that likely all victims succumb to the same type of blade is what it will do.
Hmm.
because the
Or possibly it has been found.
you never know.
I
You
agree.
never know.
I think it's been found.
I
I
kind of
think that
do now.
I think if we go back and look at the receipts from the search warrant, the
Right.
word knife written in big bold letters, I have to circumvent that they possibly may have recovered it. Maybe
I,
not, but maybe.
I
That's a
kind of
I'm
legend.
gonna
think so.
I'm gonna stick with my guns and say they do not have the knife. I think I have thought that from the beginning. I'm just gonna stick with it. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's just like rolling the dice, but I'm just gonna say they don't have it.
Okay.
That's
Okay then.
but I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I
You
just don't
never know.
think
It's
they have the
all
knife. I don't think they have the knife. But yes, the autopsies with the x-rays are super important because I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched it. I don't know if it was a show or if it was a book, but it was called Dead Men Tell Tales. Dead Men Do Tell Tales. And it had
dead
all
men tell no tales.
no, Dead Men Do Tell Tales.
It was a
Oh,
show, I believe.
was it a show?
It was like
And
about
it
autopsies and stuff.
yeah, and it basically had, when you have a deceased person and you do the autopsy, you can definitely, get a lot of information off of that based on the flesh, conditions of the flesh, how it was cut, the bones, how they were affected. Like a lot goes into that.
It
Anyway,
Yeah.
sure tells the story. It does tell a story.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I do think she needs those x-rays. I mean, because can
I
you imagine if they have a knife in custody that has the tip on it, but the x-ray shows the tip fell off? That means there could be two knives or they don't have the right knife. Or it also can show how many weapons might have been used, the different types of weapons used.
right. And if there is any doubt in the weapon being used, and I find that very important, you guys. If there is evidence that multiple weapons were used, I think that we have to take that into account, even though y'all know I think they have the right person. I think Ellie has done their job. But at the same time, we need to know, was there more people involved, or was this a multiple person attack? I mean, and that would tell the tale in that.
I agree.
And I think that with
Yeah.
as tight-lipped as this trial has been since his arrest, that if they did find the knife, we'd be the last to know. That would be one of their bombshells
Yep,
during
I
trial.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Well, I have
Every
to tell you something, guys. I have to say what beautiful Messy Ball said in chat. She wrote, "Didn't you know Crime Circus is planning on magnet fishing and finding the knife?"
Wow.
Ooh,
Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't mind going out there and just seeing what Crime Circus looks like without all of his makeup.
me too.
But he does a
I'm
great makeup job. I will say that.
I don't like clowns. Um,
They're
I don't
scary.
either. They scare me.
He's
and the
probably the only clown
episode
I've ever liked.
and the episode where he was talking about the picture being the victims being alien lizard people or whatever. I can't remember the exact terms, but that was just too much for me personally. Personally. So, but and I don't like clowns.
I don't think
Period.
anybody likes clowns anymore. I think they're very scary looking.
I have chlorophobia.
Is
Severe
that the scared
chlorophobia.
clowns?
Yep.
Chlorophobia?
Yep.
That sounds like you'd be like scared of chlorophyll.
Chlorophobia. It's
Oh,
chlorophobia.
calorophobia.
Or
Say that again.
Chlorophobia.
chloroform.
Chlorophobia.
I'm like,
Phobia.
what's it called when you're scared of clowns?
Scared of clowns.
What is it again? Oh my gosh, who's on first?
Oh my goodness.
It's
Regina.
chlorophobia. Chlorophyll. Girl. Blah, 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 blah.
Clown
Chlorophobia.
phobia.
Chlorophobia.
Wow, that's a
They can't,
mouthful.
yeah, they can't make it simple and just say clown phobia. You know.
Here's a weird
Okay.
fact, and here's a weird
We're
fact.
getting so far off topic.
I know, we'll
Go
get
ahead.
right back. But do y'all know what a group of bats is called? Regina,
Yes.
don't tell them. Regina, do not tell them. I
No.
want to see chat real quick. If you know what a group of bats is called, don't Google. Do not use my uncle. Nobody knows.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't either.
When you
Regina,
say
you
it, I'm
tell
gonna
them.
be like, I know. But
Okay,
I know.
are y'all ready for this? It's gonna make perfect sense whenever y'all hear it, okay? It's called a cauldron.
Oh wow.
A
Oh,
cauldron,
interesting.
like what witches
yeah,
brew
yeah.
up. A cauldron, a group of bats is called a cauldron. Isn't
It
that
sure is.
bizarre? But now
Wow.
you know. Now you know. The
And
more
on
you
top of
know.
that, now Hollis, I have to take us even further off topic. Thank you very much. What do you call a group of butterflies? No
I don't
Googling.
know.
Pretty.
A
You told
kaleidoscope.
me. Yes. A
Ooh.
kaleidoscope.
I like that word.
That's
Ooh,
That's a
I do
good
fascinating.
word.
too. It is a happy word. I like that.
Yep. So we learned something new today.
I've
Cauldron
learned a
and
lot.
kaleidoscope. All right.
Yeah.
Back to
And now
topic.
that we're done with our PBS educational segment, I'm just kidding. Okay. Back to the topic at hand. Were we done discussing what we watched so far? And
Yes, it looks like they've just thrown out a lot of dates that they want to make for pretrial motions, jury instructions, questionnaires, exhibits, yada yada yada. Definitely.
right. Well, I need to get it to where the other hot topic we were wanting to talk about. We can
Oh
go back
yes.
over and do the dates. And Taylor broke a little bit of
Officer did that
information.
interview
Hold
and
on.
get them matched up and figure out if it's somebody I need to talk to. So not
What
only
part
do
is
we
that
have a
at,
huge
Hollis? Do you remember what part that's at? Where Ann Taylor spilled those beans or that tea? Do you remember what part of the video is that?
Isn't it coming up soon? I thought it
Yeah.
was during this
I'm
part.
just saying
Kind of.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not sure exactly, but I thought
Oh,
it
I'm
was in
sorry,
there.
Regina. I was muted. Yeah, just play it through.
Okay.
Here's one thing you need to do before you
Ugh.
buy anything online. Don't spend another dime on Amazon.
Amazon. I love Amazon.
I know
I
people
said, no, I
like
don't. I only have November 29th. And they said, oh, well, I guess we just didn't get that. Something didn't copyright. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill or his office. I'm saying this is really difficult to drag the information out and get it to my experts or to understand it.
Oh, wait a minute. We got to go back a little bit further. I think you're right. I think she just said that.
I need discovery. I need all of the discovery. I need the things that we've asked for. I need to not have to fight in motions to compel for things that was done on behalf of the state by the FBI that ends up being used against Bryan or used in the investigation. I need that stuff. I need, when I ask for something, I need to get it rather than have to go back and ask and ask and ask again. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill Thompson. I'm just not. I think he tries his very best, but I think he's hampered by the agencies and the information he gets from them. I can give you some examples. We asked for x-rays. We were told they don't exist. They're listed repeatedly in reports. We asked for them again. And I'm not sure if I'm getting them or not. The response is we have thumbnails, but we haven't found the actual x-rays. There's one example. I asked for certain mapping data done by a member of the CAST team. They said, you have it all. I said, no, I don't. I only have November 29th. And they said, oh, well, I guess we just didn't get that. Something didn't copy right. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill or his office. I'm saying this is really difficult to drag the information out and get it to my experts or to understand it. And to hear that we're going to have a discovery deadline by the end of August is great. I need to have every piece of everything. I then have to have time to double check and make sure I really got it. I need to have time to get it to my experts and for them to have an opportunity to understand how that impacts their opinions, if at all. So I'm prepared for this case. And then we need time to get things to the state and for them to respond to what we send to them too. I know that this court wants to set this trial. These kinds of cases don't happen in a year. They don't happen in 2 years. They take a long time. This case is challenged with the way discovery has come at us. I'll give you another example. I open up, I get them and I list them in my computer by date. At one point, I gave the court a printout of that so the court could see how I'm getting it. And when I look in a folder, it has subfolders. And I might get some reports from Moscow Police Department with an FBI report. And an FBI report might reference an email. It might reference a photograph. It might reference a screenshot of a picture or of a phone that they took when they interviewed somebody. That's not with it. So maybe a few months later, I get some photos that has these screenshots in. And now I have to try to figure out who gave that screenshot, whose phone did that come from, which officer did that interview, and get them matched up and figure out if it's somebody I need to talk to. So not only do we have a huge volume of information, the way I get it is completely disorganized. And it's like if you wanted to play 52 card pickup with 100,000 decks of cards and throw them in the air, and I have to go figure out how to put them together. And by the way, the backs of every one of those cards look the same. That's what I'm doing. We also have science questions in this case. We have DNA, we have cell phone analysis, we have video analysis. The video analysis that the state really likes in this case, I don't have the full scope of that video with audio that should be available. They're working on it, they really are. I don't think they're not working on it. I'm just saying this is a real thing that takes time. And then you have the public nature of this case, and people don't want to talk to us. They're not wanting to talk to us. So we have to try to get witnesses, people that are listed in the state's discovery, to talk to us. We have our duties that are required with mitigation because there's no break. I don't get to go to trial on the innocence phase, and then if something goes wrong and Bryan's not acquitted, I don't get time to go prepare that mitigation. I have to take another breath and start right there. So I have to have time to do all of that. Our mitigation expert is working as quickly as she can. She is meeting a lot of resistance to collect records and to conduct interviews. We're working through that as best we can. She has travel obligations to try to interview people. These things take time. I want all the discovery by the end of August. I love the discovery deadline by September 6th. That does not allow me enough time to get ready for trial by March 3rd. That deadline, that cutoff for us to get mitigation materials, that's impossible. That's just impossible. We've got the year pretty well scheduled out with what travel still needs to happen and what records still need to be obtained. So to have that to the state, I think they said by September, October, that's just impossible. I would request that this court take up our venue motion in May, make a decision on venue, And let's see where we can get with the discovery. I still need to read every bit of discovery that's come, and I haven't. I scan it when I get it, but to go page by page and read it and understand what it means, I'm not through 2023. I have a long ways to go. So I don't think that that is realistic to set it. I think if you set it for March, I'm going to be back here after the discovery deadline, and I'm going to be telling you there's no way that we're going to be ready for trial. I would rather this court set the change of venue, make that determination. Let's see where we get with the discovery by May. Probably the court would have a decision by the end of May, early June. Let's see where we are with discovery by then and set a realistic day. I hope we can go by summer of 2025.
Well, thank you, Ms. Taylor. I can help in any way to speed things with, if there's problems with discovery, I'm happy to do that on very short notice. Just so that we can keep going. But you say, it'd be fantastic if you got all the discovery by August. Your mitigation person has been working already, right? And just to know that I'm not being insensitive about this, I did read the ABA supplementary guidelines for mitigation function of defense teams in death penalty cases, and it's huge. Okay, I get it. There are so many things that if you don't do, then it comes back as, well, you were ineffective. And those standards are high standards for sure. And obviously it takes a lot of time. So, but I'm also thinking, if you get all the discovery, if you can, assuming that, which may be inaccurate, for the end of August, you're saying that you wouldn't be able to respond to all of that, assuming that it's even earlier, that you could not be ready for the beginning of March 2025.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I love that discovery deadline. Let's shoot for that. And I think that would help me make a June 2025 trial. I think once we have that discovery, and I agree, we can file the challenges to the death penalty earlier, but the challenges to some of the things that are going to be contained in discovery, those we need to see it all and see how it interplays. I can do some things early, but I may be coming back and asking the court to reconsider if it doesn't go our way and we found something that we didn't have. I think a discovery cutoff is great. And I think the court has to manage that discovery. If we finally are up to the eve of trial and there ends up being a whole new dump of discovery, then the court has to look at that discovery and understand, is it exculpatory? Is it something that we didn't have a chance to prepare for? It should be excluded. If it relates to anything to do with the death penalty portion of the case, then the court's going to be asked to strike the death penalty. I mean, the discovery deadline is critical in this case. So I love that. I love that. What that means, if I have all the discovery by the end of August this year, it means that there is a stopping point where I can know I have it all. So I can confidently get the motions filed. I can confidently tell my experts, this is it. This is the scope of what you have to do. And I can have some space to read it all and understand it and get ready for witnesses too. If the court makes that deadline, know that mitigation is not going to be done by then. But if the court makes that discovery deadline, and then we follow that with our motion practice, and then our deadlines for expert disclosures and whatever's going to come from that, and our mitigation, we should be in good shape by June of 2025 to try the case. If we have that discovery cutoff, I think that's a great idea.
Ms. Taylor, Mr. Thompson?
Trying to figure out where to start first. Yes, discovery is massive. Yes, there have been things that Mr. Kohberger has asked for that we've inquired, and we were initially told, no, you don't have that. And then we have gone back at the prompting of defense saying, you sure? I mean, it ought to be there. And for example, x-rays for the autopsy. Well, we just got those. The first came in with thumbnails. In today's discovery, Ms. Taylor's going to have the full size, which we were able to obtain when we saw you gave us thumbnails. These are useless. Give us the real thing. And through the coroner's office, we were able to finally achieve that. According to Ms. Jennings, we are better than 95% complete on discovery. So we're getting close. There are some things that are outstanding. There are some issues with what information is actually available to us. We have given Mr. Kohberger everything that we haven't asked for a protective order on or had some sort of dispute about. And we've given it to them frankly, in the order it's come in, instead of waiting to try to package it together and give it to them in a different format, just because they want it as quickly as possible. And I appreciate that. And we're going to continue doing that. It's going to benefit to have deadlines for everybody to have to work for here. I don't think just setting a deadline for state's discovery does anything other productive other than that initial stage. So if we're going to set discovery deadlines, we need a state's discovery deadline. We need a defense discovery deadline within a reasonable time after that and a reasonable time before trial, because we're going to then have to investigate whatever the defense tells us they might be using. And then, of course, an opportunity after we see what the defense is proposing or is disclosing to rebut that in some fashion and give notice of that. So that package of 3 days are important. Pre-trial motion on the death penalty, I think that's important. We need deadlines, so we just get it done and over with. And both teams can prioritize based on the timelines what needs to be done when. I don't know the first thing about what's going on with defense's mitigation. Apparently it's been going on for a while. It sounds like it's going to be massive. That's something that we just don't have any insight to. We think that our proposals are realistic. We appreciate the fact that something could happen where it turns out that they aren't realistic, that something happens and we have to revisit. And I think we need to be prepared to do that. I think the last thing that I want to touch on real quick is the proposal to set a state's discovery deadline and set hearings on the change of venue is inadequate. As we've indicated, change of venue under the law, that motion is premature. We need to be able to give the court the benefit of what impacts publicity, for example, is having on our actual jury pool. We know there's publicity. Everybody can agree. There's been massive publicity, not just in Latah County, but I see more about it in Boise or hear about it from other parts of the state than what we're seeing locally. So the massive publicity, that's a red herring, realistically. There's publicity everywhere about this. The issue is whether the publicity and the nature of this case is such that we cannot pick a fair and impartial jury in this county. And of course, we know that just being aware of publicity about a case does not disqualify a juror. There has to be a showing that that publicity or whatever has impacted the juror to the point where that juror cannot sit in this box as a fair and impartial juror and make a decision based only on the evidence presented in this courtroom. That's the issue that Your Honor is going to have to decide on the change of venue question. And you can't do that based on a bunch of affidavits from experts who say, Judge, there's been a lot of publicity. That doesn't cut it. So I think just having a state's discovery deadline and trying to prematurely move forward with motion for change of venue is not the right approach. We think that the proposals that we've made are reasonable, understanding Ms. Taylor has concerns about whether she's going to be able to meet those. And I think there are enough stages in there that if that becomes a reality, there's the opportunity for us to discuss that. Like everybody here, we only want to do this once. We do not want to invite error that we can avoid. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Can I,
yes,
I think you said maybe you're like 98% on.
But probably a little bit more than 95% is what Ms. Jennings just told me.
95%. Okay. So if it's 95%, I mean, is it possible that it could be done before the end of August?
It's possible, and we aren't going to wait till the end of August to do anything. We will continue to disclose information as we receive it. I mean, that's not fair to the defense. That's not fair to anybody. Just sit on stuff and dump it. So we are hopeful that it'll be finished by then, but we don't want to have to face a deadline that we think there's a chance could be difficult to meet. And that's why we propose the early September date, which would be essentially 6 months from now.
September 6th, that's what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Taylor, you said that would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic, Your Honor. And Your Honor can give us a January 2025 deadline if the court wants to set a discovery deadline for us too. Expert disclosures, I think maybe would take a little bit longer, maybe February 2025. The court gives us a deadline for expert disclosures. I want to comment on the motion for venue change. Your Honor, because I filed a motion and the court doesn't have affidavits or the briefing to understand how we're going to approach this, doesn't make it untimely. I'm fully aware that the massive amount of media coverage by itself isn't all of it. But I'm also aware that this case has had more media coverage than most other cases, and it continues. So there is an impact of that. There are other considerations besides just the massive amount of media and an impact on potential jurors. That's what we're going to talk about. I think it's timely. I think it's appropriate to set a change of venue motion. I think it is what makes the most sense for the court to make that determination and set a trial date from there. If the court sets one here and has to change it later, a lot of things have gone into play to get that trial date set here, to get the courtroom reserved, and a lot of people realize waiting until the court has heard the information, more than affidavits saying there's mass amount of media coverage, the court can make that determination. If the court agrees to change venue at that time, then it makes a lot more sense to just set that trial from there. I would think by the end of, or by May, when we can have a hearing, I would think I would have a better handle maybe on the process the state's going through now with its discovery. I will continue to make the utmost effort to get all the way through every piece of what I have now and continue to follow up with questions to the state so that we can try to have this discovery issue put aside. Once we have the discovery completed, I think that we're going to have a lot better idea of what the motion practice is going to look like and how long that's going to take. And it'll be a more realistic way to disclose experts to one another with the materials that's required under Idaho Rule of Evidence 702. I think that's a better way to go, even though you might not set a trial date today, because at least you'll set one that's really informed that maybe everybody can rely on.
Thank you. Well, I want to make an informed decision about changing venue, and it makes sense to me. I mean, it may be premature, but I'd like to see what the defense has to say about.
Okay, Hollis, do you want to give the breakdown on the change of venue so I can kind of fast forward it real quick? Hollis, did you fall asleep on us?
I don't think she did.
Hollis.
She might be in the potty.
Can you look backstage?
I'm sorry, guys. I was muted. I was talking, but I was muted. I feel silly.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and give the breakdown on that for us real quick of the, great, now I'm having a brain patooter. the breakdown on what he decided about
Change of venue.
the change of venue. That way we can kind of fast forward it a little bit because there's still that part with Ann Taylor that we're going to break down unless I missed it. And I don't think I missed it because I've been listening
No,
intently.
it's at the very end. He basically said we don't have to change the venue, but they will have a change of venue hearing before the trial. And I think it's based on the jury's questionnaires. I think they're going to wait till all that comes out.
Testify
I don't
if you're
think he
gonna
wants
have-
to rule on a change of venue right now.
Exactly.
But I do think he thinks there's going to be too much media attention. And, you know, he understands that. I don't know why she would feel the need to have a change of venue. I don't really know why they're trying to argue a change of venue. I don't see a change of venue really having anything to do with the trial outcome. I can see it being more beneficial to the public.
Right.
That's the only change of venue argument I can see needing to be made. I don't think changing the venue will change the testimony or the witnesses or the evidence.
Right.
But it will
Okay,
accommodate
so let's
accommodate the
do
media.
you want to fill people in to the part that do you want to fill them in the rest of the way on the dates and stuff real quick so we can get to that one part because
Well,
we're
they finally did decide for December 9th for all discovery to be put forth for each side. It's decided September 9th of, I believe, 2024, obviously. Yeah, 2024. That's the done deal. It was decided all discovery.
right. So I can fast forward through that part real quick and then we're
Yeah.
going to get back
And
to
I do agree the change, I do believe I wrote it down. The change of venue trial, they agreed to have it on March 3rd, which is of 2025. So they're
Okay, right.
really going to leave it up to a few months before the trial.
Right.
So don't make
Okay.
hotel arrangements yet.
Yep, don't make hotel arrangements yet, you guys. You don't know where the
Till after
trial's going
March
to be held.
3rd.
Yep.
Wait till after March 4th.
Right?
Get your
Right.
spot.
Okay, so let's get through this part right here back to where let's see. Here we go. Let me see.
Now you don't need to worry about
Oh,
memorizing a script or buying a complicated, expensive teleprompter.
you're right. I don't.
Your
Okay, go ahead.
Honor, can I have it before May 25th? A witness I anticipate is not going to be available starting May 25th. Starting May 25th, I think, for 2 weeks. So if I could have it ahead of May 25th, that way we
You have
can.
a jury trial back in May 20th. This afternoon,
There's been an ongoing discussion beginning most recently with the state's request for scheduling order, and I believe Ms. Taylor briefly addressed it at the last hearing. There's been an ongoing discussion about the alibi.
Okay, we're getting into the alibi discussion. Hollis, do you want to break that down real quick about what was said about the final date for the alibi real quick? Are you there?
I'm so sorry, girl. I mute it when you play because I don't want to be rattling around. The alibi, I believe it's April 17th. Has to be confirmed.
Okay, April 17th. Okay, so let's move
Now,
forward
I did
past
not
that.
know if he said 2024 or 2025. I'm going to say 2025. They're going to give them a long time. I'm just going to guesstimate 2025
Okay.
because they've been
Okay.
going in progression from, in date order of everything to be done.
Right. Exactly. Oh, thank you for elaborating. Let's see if we can find this part that we were wanting to break down real quick that occurred during the hearing. And play. Oh, I gotta actually
but
hit
I may be wrong. Ms. Taylor.
No. When the court vacated the trial setting, the court vacated all of the deadlines, including the alibi deadline. That wasn't carved out as one that's was still held through when the court vacated the rest of its scheduling order. So I don't think that we're foreclosed from that. The court also has the ability to give an extension besides the limited time by statute. In this case, it's more than Bryan was just driving around. We have let the state and the court know that we expect that will be supported by expert testimony and by cross-examination of the state's experts. I need their full cast report and the rest of the discovery related to that before I can say more about that. So to tie me to a deadline when I don't have the rest of the discovery that I've been waiting for that would relate to that will mean that I will be back asking the court to reopen it. My expert can't finish until I get the rest of the discovery as well.
And the discovery you're talking about is a video of the car?
No.
What do you
So the video that we talk about is one that I think the state's going to use in its case that I don't have full video on. That
Are y'all listening to what Ann Taylor is saying? There is video. There are videos. Wonder what them videos are. Okay. Sorry.
I'm not talking about any video of Bryan's car. When I'm talking about an alibi defense, unless there's video that shows it elsewhere that I haven't gotten to yet, which may be possible given the fact that there's a lot I haven't seen yet. What I'm talking about though is the cast report, the drive testing information.
Cast report meaning the identification of the particular car.
That is the cell tower information. So what that is going to show and what the drive testing data is going to show and what other reports related to that are going to be things that my expert needs to finish our investigation and things that I need to formulate my cross-examination against the state's expert. So when I'm telling you that I'm going to do those things in alibi, I can't tell you more than that right now, but that's how we're going to support Bryan's alibi, that he was out driving that night.
Okay, so you're saying that you have not received the cell tower reports?
I have some data. Some cell tower data, some phone record data. I have a draft of a cast report. The most recent information I have cast is the FBI doing their work. The most recent information I have is that on March 31st, they expect for that report to be done through the peer review process. So I may get it a month from now. I need to get it to my expert to digest. There's materials that support their report that I don't have full disclosure of. And the state's aware of it. I think they're working on it. And maybe they're on that drive that I'll pick up today, but I haven't had them yet.
So you expect to get that in mid-March?
I expect to get their report after March 31st, after it's done. The supporting data, I'm not sure when it's coming. They tell me it's coming.
Okay, I'm gonna kick it back to the state.
Your Honor, I guess I'm a little confused.
Hold on just a second. Okay. Are y'all understanding what they're talking about when they say the Thrive data? Hollis, do you want to help me out with this a little bit?
I do, Regina, but you know what? I think this is yours because you were the first one that mentioned this in a live that we were in, and it actually made all the bells go off. So I think this is your baby.
Okay. So we'll finish giving a rundown of the dates. I want to show y'all something what Thrive is. Do y'all remember me talking about Burla? Okay. So Thrive is technology that integrates into your car for third parties. Third parties can purchase it and put it on the car, especially dealerships and stuff, but they also use it on the criminal level to trace you and where your car is. And the reports that Ann Taylor are talking about are just like Burla, and they will have all of the information on Brian's car on it, like his car, whether or not it was throttling or idling, whether or not he opened or closed the door. Do y'all remember me talking about the Burla report? It's kind of like the same thing. So
Yeah, I
they
remember
are,
that.
yes, they are implementing data from Brian Kohberger's car in this case. That is a fact. And Taylor just said it. And ladies, come in at any time and start explaining. Just I'd like to hear y'all's views and opinions of what y'all have come to learn about what they can and can't do with car data technology. I mean, it's phenomenal.
I just want to mention that to people out there, even if you're purchasing a vehicle from somewhere else and you're saying, oh, well, I don't have that, there is an app that any of these car sellers can download to keep track of that vehicle at all times. It can it can keep track of all kinds of things. I mean, just crazy stuff like even if you're going up an incline or down an incline, or if you're going you're slamming on your brakes or any of that stuff. It's not just for accidents, but there's an app called the telematics tracking app, and your if you go to your insurance company and you can get a discount with them if you have this telematics tracking app with them where they can monitor everything, that there's a chance you could get a discount for doing that. So I'm just saying, for example, all these vehicles from about 2012 on have this capability.
Does that mean that, like, if you were, is it similar to like a GPS where
It is.
they,
It's integration system. It's integration system. It can work with your GPS. It can work with your little black box. It can work with your every system that is digital in your car.
Even cell phone use.
wow,
Everything. It can integrate all of it, and it keeps records of it on a cloud.
wow, very interesting. I had no idea. I had no idea. So that's a great deal of information that could possibly be used against BK in trial.
Yes, but let me say something in all fairness, because he's not actually convicted yet. It could be possibly used for or against him, depending on what that data shows. But I think it's not going to be in his benefit.
Now I have a
I
question. Whoops.
go ahead.
I just have a question about the how reliable this cast report is. I know you know this really good, so like for me, I'm not familiar with it. So is it a reliable source?
Well, you have to think about it on this level. They use it to recover people. They use it to recover vehicles. They use it for emergency location of missing people. So if it's good enough to use for people that are missing, is it good enough to use still in the criminal aspect of it too? I'd say if we're willing to trust this technology and this data and all other aspects to help us find people and everything else, why would we not allow it to be part of proving criminal cases as well? If it's good enough for us to rely on it, on what are the standards for it not to be reliable on?
I'm sure that'll probably be something that's brought up during the trial if, in fact, it's used against Brian Kohberger. I'm sure that the defense will have experts come in and say it's not reliable.
And that's kind of why I was asking, just to see, like, if it.
Do y'all do y'all see beautiful messy ball? That's exactly right, beautiful messy ball. They can even tell when you take your seatbelt off. I mean, they can tell
So
when you
guys,
open
I
your
want to,
car door, all of that. It's amazing the amount of data they collect on your car. What the manufacturer
so
collects would blow y'all's minds.
So in YouTube mod for the mods, I put the link to the docket in which he shows the Pamela Mazak file. It's Mazak, okay? And she was the lady, that was her name, Pamela Mazak, so he calls it the Mazak files. She was on the stand as a forensic digital expert. So she was in charge of the PowerPoint presentation where she basically overlaid the cell phone tower over an overlay of the data of the phone, over an overlay of the data of the Ring camera, with an overlay of the data of intersection spottings on cameras. And what you ended up with, it is a 58-minute video, and you will see exactly what you're going to see in the Kohberger trial. And this is the one reason I wish they would have televised this trial. But I did tell the docket, I was like, if you could just put the Pamela Mazak PowerPoint up and let people watch it, and they can pause and read it and play it again and pause and read it, he will walk you through her step-by-step digital forensic data of all electronic systems from the minute she left her home that morning all the way up until the minute she got back home after the murders. And it is a dot to dot. And it is going to change the way we see cases nowadays. I really think all this secondary and tertiary DNA evidence is going to get so lost on people. But if you have a forensic data digital PowerPoint with proof, and let me tell you, they go into technical software to prove, everyone has to testify their experience. It's all double checked. It is by the book. But I think Sammy threw the link in there.
I did.
Yes, Sammy threw the link in there. And if y'all click on that, well, come back to it later. We don't want y'all. You know what? I'll post it in Discord for everybody. How's that?
Right. Well, I would just also
And
like
for
to add
those
to that,
and for
Hollis.
those who are not, and for those that aren't in the working business of our 5 group of women, there is the link Sammy G is posting to it. Just kind of take a screenshot, and then you can copy and paste that and watch that after tonight's live. You will be amazed. You will be amazed.
And here's, you guys, here's the whole thing. Every time you buy a car, every time you agree to make payments on that car, every time you agree to use a cell phone, every time you agree to log on to a certain browser, every time you agree to use a search engine, you agree to their terms and regulations and using your data. But yes, know that every time you use an item that collects data or uses data or transfers data, you are giving up your information when you agree to the terms and services of use. And it's everywhere in everything you do. And people don't realize it, but it's a real thing. You're being tracked every moment of the day. Everything you do that has a digital footprint is tracked.
I tell you what, Regina, in that trial, it wasn't until Pamela Mazak got up on the stand and gave everybody, and it was at the end of the trial, that sealed the deal for the jury. They did not need to see her in that vehicle. It sealed the deal. She could not get around that. Everyone else
Right.
had a solid alibi. No one else was driving her vehicle. So,
Right.
and look at Murdoch. I think Murdoch there was another case where they used it too. But, this one's going to be so widely televised. I think it's going to be great for people to finally see what
I,
technology is now going to play a part in court trials.
Kel
Me
had a
too.
question. She's saying, what are the drawbacks to it? She's playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. And like beautiful messy ball said, your privacy. Your privacy. Everyone's right. It's your privacy. They're constantly collecting data on us, and we sign our rights to our privacy away every single day using those applications, those uh, devices, those connection uh, services, software, all of it. You're always agreeing to let people have your data and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, don't panic. It's out there. Everybody's got it and everybody's dealing with it. We're doing it on a daily.
Can I ask a question? It may be a silly one, but does that apply to leased cars as well? And was Brian Kohberger's car, he owned it, his father owned it, or was it a leased car? I've heard all three.
Well, see, here's the whole thing. It's software that is constantly uploading. So, because it's not a part or anything like a LoJack, they don't just come take the software off your car.
Well, I
Does that
didn't
make
know.
sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I didn't know that
And it's on
if
every vehicle that is Bluetooth capable. Just so you ladies know, it's
okay.
every vehicle that is Bluetooth or integrated for your phone. Every bit of them have those same clouds that record that same data, and your car is
And I
constantly
think the year,
transmitting.
My
and I
reason
don't
for
know what
asking,
year they started it, but I think it's from every 2012 model up. It might be different, but I'm going off of just memory here.
It's
I
some
think
of them
any
started
vehicle.
really doing it in 2011, but it was more or less cemented to the point that they were going to write a congressional bill to pass on it. But the automotive companies started having so much interest in the data from their cars that they started doing it. They took it on their own upon themselves to do it because they realized it would affect their bottom line. To know that
But
information would
Char,
help affect the bottom line.
Now, isn't it
but
funny?
Char,
Whoops, sorry.
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
the reason I was kind of curious was because, like, for rented cars or leased cars or things like that, where different people are using it, especially in rentals, is there a way, I wonder, for them to designate, okay, this person stopped using the car at this time, so we have to cut off that information on the memory bank or whatever it is?
No, no charge.
Oh,
See, the thing is, every time you use one of these applications or one of these softwares or devices, the very first time you use it, you're putting your information out there, and there's no way to stop it from being out there. Once it's out there, it's out there. There's nothing you can do to get your information back. Does that make sense?
yeah, but if it's a rental car, if it were a rental car and say you
If it's
rented
a
the car,
rental car, I promise you it's going to have a low jack system on it.
yeah, but I mean, how do they
Yeah, I think
distinguish between each person that rents that car? I
They
wonder.
will
from
have,
the time span, most
Okay,
likely.
okay,
yep,
And
it'll
most
all be
likely the
recorded, the dates
track
and times.
just a thought.
dates and times are recorded. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Yep.
also, what I found out, what it was really used for is, I mean, I know people can put navigational systems into their vehicles and pay money, right? But what I was told is that these were started to be installed in all vehicles to help with carjacking recoveries and to the reason they record all technical data is because when two cars hit each other, it's always the other person's fault. Well, insurance companies can retrieve the data on both vehicles and know exactly whose fault it is. So I think it was a big push with
Beautiful messy
insurance companies
ball.
first.
Beautiful messy ball. You are correct. The data is only
Yeah.
stored for so long, but it's actually more like 6 weeks, 4 months to 6 weeks. And it's the data that is in the cloud that is associated to the Thrive software programming. It's all stored in the cloud, so it may even have that data accessed longer than just the standard car records.
Now,
Can I
Kel,
mention?
they
I I wanted to mention something here that when any of your devices, including your car, has this type of technology, it also is communicating with all other tech So, for instance, you go into an area and it's that tower is collecting data on who is in the vicinity. It may not give an exact location, but it gets close enough where they can verify where you're at. It's not just a phone ping. This is data collected by that tower that says uh, these 100 cars or 100 phones were in this area. And it collects that sort of a data that
Right.
allows them to be able to, they collect it. If they need it, they dump it.
Yes, Sammy,
Now,
can I elaborate
Kel,
on that a little bit? Hold on, hold on. Beautiful Messy Ball said it's like a black box on an airplane. Kind of, but not exactly. See, whenever your car collects data in a black box, it is much more limited to just the car having the data. But what we're talking about with the Thrive technology is your data from your car is actually uploaded to a cloud. That's what this is. So it's not just the car having the data recorded, it's a server somewhere having this data recorded, whether it's a virtual server or a real server, it doesn't matter. The data is collected and uploaded and stored for a certain amount of time beyond the capabilities of the car recording it. Does that make sense, sister?
well,
Oh, yeah.
Regina, then here, because I don't know how to answer Kel's question because I only know one way that I've seen it done. And she asked, can they access this info without the car? What I know that they did with
Yes.
Armstrong's car, they went to the dealership. They had a warrant for her infotainment system, which is an automatic system built into her Jeep. And they removed that system from her vehicle and used software to download it. So, Regina, can they do it without the car?
Yes. In some instances, they can collect enough data from the cloud itself, especially if it's uploaded to the dealership, because that data is all collected by the manufacturers for certain things um, your car having the right emissions, if it's emitting more than it should, and your CO2 emissions and stuff like that. It'll collect data uh um like that comes from your black box about crashes and stuff like that.
Well,
But
I
it's
know,
really but they're really collecting data all the time, but
right.
they do
Because
dump these databases every so often. But it's still not just the car where the data can be collected, it's also by other servers and processes that are not actually part of the car but constantly uploading details and information about the car. Does that make sense?
yes, because my husband, with our car insurance, he agreed to the program where his car can literally be looked at through the insurance company to see if he's, you know, um, throwing, slamming on the brake or, pedal to the metal. And if he drives well, his insurance stays low. And he wanted to put one on my car, and I was like, "Oh, don't go there." I've got a lead foot, and my tires are bald at all times. So don't put it on my car. Our insurance will go out the roof. So I
Right.
don't know if he even had to purchase something. I'm not really sure how the insurance company is getting the data off his vehicle.
Can I
I'd never even
can I
asked
say
him.
something real quick? Let me say
Please
I would
something
do.
real
love it.
quick about that. It's actually, to keep it very simple, it's similar to, okay, so they need to have the digits, the numbers for that particular whatever's in your vehicle at that time, based on this program that they've got going on, which of these digits equate to frequencies. And when they type this in, they can gain access to data through that. Not to mention, of course, they've got the equipment, the machinery, and the programs to interpret it. But just to keep it very simple, very basic, that's maybe a way they can do it without having the actual vehicle.
And they will have people on the stand that will testify as experts from, all these different types of software companies and the vehicular data systems. They will come and testify and will be entered in as expert witnesses. And that's really, I think the case is going to really fall with all of that.
Well, let me explain it to you like this. The reason this is so important, because Brian's car had this integrated technology that not only did, if Brian's phone's Bluetooth was not off, if his car was Bluetooth capable, Hollis, his Bluetooth was touching every vehicle, within 50 feet of everywhere his car was, it's going to have a record of his car touching that Bluetooth and stuff as well. So it's going to be able to put him within 50 feet, the car itself, if it was Bluetooth capable, of their home and everything, and their phones and the other phones in the parking lot. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I tell you what else, Regina. One of the worst mistakes you can make, because I was talking to the homicide detective in town last week, is he said, don't turn your phone off when you commit a crime. He goes, the absence of evidence is going to nail you to the wall. And I've seen it in multiple cases. They turn the phone off, they commit the crime, they get back in the car, they drive a little bit, they get home, they turn the phone back on. You look so darn guilty when you're the number one suspect with the absence of evidence of your phone not being on, which would be normal. I don't wake up at 3:30 and turn my phone off until, you know, you know what I'm
Wouldn't that
saying.
also contribute to the intent that you had?
Absolutely. I think it does that exactly. We just learned with intent, and I think we can all agree that this was completely premeditated with Audrey Cunningham. I think that his phone and his use of data and stuff, even though it was at a much more severe and deliberate, uh, motive that ensued, I think that it very much showed timeline and intent. Don't you?
Well, I do. And I
Absolutely.
mean, he basically was texting the mother and enticing the mother and the child to a certain location. I mean, it's his own texting. So, I mean,
Definitely
stupid
it
is
was
as stupid
intent.
does. You know how I feel about that.
I have a
Oh.
question. Now, with Brian's schooling, he would know about all of this, correct? With like the iCloud and it storing and the Bluetooth and
Until recently, mostly alphabet agencies used it, and our local police officers and investigators were not aware of it until most recently.
okay.
Well, the truth is, dealerships and stuff don't want you knowing. Like people, it's not really a big. Well, Hollis, you called the dealership. You got the same runaround I did. Why don't you explain what happened when you called?
Well, I called the dealership. Elantra is made by another company. I can't remember. It was like
Hyundai.
literally a year. Yes, thank you. I was going to say that and I didn't want to be wrong. And I ended like literally, I'm sitting in this parking lot and I'm just not giving up. And I ended up being transferred to one of their Hyundai headquarters engineers. And he
Hyundai.
finally gets on Hyundai. I can't say it. It's the Southern in me. Anyway, he finally gets on the phone and I ask him, can you please go over the manual of the year of Bryan Kohberger's car? And I said, how come it does not say that there's a location or a tracking or any kind of system in this vehicle? So he went over it with me very precisely. He did not want to answer me. Trust me. He did not want to give up a lot of information, but I kept poking and poking and poking. And he finally said, the bottom line is this: insurance companies and law enforcement do not want people to know that these are built into your vehicle for insurance car purposes, carjackings, I mean, and for also solving crimes, all kinds of things, right? And he said they will not put the sticker price on the outside of the vehicle. It's not advertised that it comes with a vehicle, and you will purchase the car and you will not know it is in your vehicle. And I asked him, in what year did they start installing these in the Elantras? And he answered me, I believe it was the year before the year of, I think he said 2012 or 2014 was when they started installing them. And it was like right then and there when I hung up the phone, I knew Bryan Kohberger's car had this installed in it. No doubt. I knew they would have the digital forensics from his vehicle. I knew they would have it.
Right.
And I
Well, I
found
kind
it
of.
kind of surprising. Like, I really found it kind of surprising. I thought, well, wouldn't you advertise that and charge for more? on the vehicle, but it's kind of like it's a real on the down low technique that they've kind of come up with to help law enforcement insurance company solve its money. It comes down to money, you know.
So that in no way breaches your right to privacy then.
No,
What was that, Star? I
because
didn't hear your question.
you
I
agree
was
to the terms and service of the manufacturer and the car dealership when you buy the car.
okay, and they don't disclose that when you buy a car.
No, it will not show on the outside of the sticker.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
and
I
here's
was just wondering. Excuse me.
and here's
Go
the other
ahead,
thing.
Alice.
Here's the other thing, Shar, I'll tell you. I actually had the manual, and I asked the engineer if he could show me in the manual where it states that that's installed. Guess what he told me? He said, "We don't put it in the manuals.
Whoa.
You don't even know if your vehicle has it. It's not in the manual."
Oops.
And that's how on the down low he was about it. He says, "We don't even put it
Wow.
in the manual," because I looked up the manual and I couldn't find it for that that make and model and year. So I decided, you know what? Why not just call head honchos? Let's really ask somebody about this. So
Hmm.
it's not even in the manual of Bryan's make and year model.
I
It's not
think it's
listed.
really,
So
it's really,
he might have not even known. He might have looked through his
yeah.
manual and said, "I'm good to go. I can drive my car there and back." And now I bet he wishes he would have,
Yep. I bet he wish he would have looked into it a little deeper. I bet he wishes. You know what that man's thinking right now? Why
Oh,
that
did
his
I get in a
desires that his sick desire far outweighed rational thinking.
yeah.
I think he's kicking himself because he got caught, and I think he thinks he was too smart to get caught. That's my opinion, allegedly.
So the x-rays wouldn't in any way be connected with this information. There wouldn't be like an x-ray picture of a car you're within so many feet of. That's not the same thing then. This is totally um, digital.
Right. And a lot of this
Oh,
information you
right.
can't just go research whether or not it's on your car.
Wow.
This if they're collecting if the manufacturer themselves is collecting this data to do crash report studies. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right.
How interesting.
And that was
What
the part that
interesting
blew me away.
information.
That's the part that blew me away. I couldn't find it in the manual. And he said it's not going to be in there. That's how on the down low it
Because
is.
it's not a component of the car, it's software. Like it's not required software for your car to function. But yes, every time if you have a vehicle past 2012, the chances are greater than not your vehicle is collecting all of this data. And every time you drive by someone or a home or a business or anything that has either an internet Wi-Fi service or is using Bluetooth, that data is collected. Yes, that's true. Like your car every time you park beside another vehicle. You know what? I've had my car. Have y'all been driving down the road and had your car log on to like start playing someone else's music over your car, and you realize that you left your Bluetooth open? Your car makes a event recording of everything that happens like that. So you also have it not only linking up to your phone, but every time you go near someone else's car that has Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or any of that, you're also linking up to their vehicle, and that's how they collect all of this data from us.
So
Now, Regina, I
your
have a
little
question for you. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Sammy.
No, I just wanted to mention that I did post a link in here for people to get familiar to what is an EDR, which is an event data recorder, and that would
Right.
equate to your little black box within your car. but this will help give you a little bit of an understanding of kind of how this works.
Now, what I was going to ask is this is going to take us a blast to the past. The Kylie Rodney case, I cannot remember what make and year her car was. Here's my question. Is it protected from water? And if so, if Kylie Rodney's car was an older model, would it have worked had she already been in that lake? Does that make sense?
That's a good
It's
question.
funny you should say that, Hollis, because well, car black boxes are typically not designed like airplane black boxes that send out a signal of where it is, even underwater. Um, However, her car data, if you'll remember, led them to the edge of the lake. If you'll remember, all of her data led them to the edge of that lake. Which is
Okay.
why it was like, well, mind-boggling. Well, everyone's looking for this girl. Did you ever stop and think she might be right there at the end of where she was last that y'all know she was?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
y'all know what I mean. Y'all know what I
I know
mean.
what
Like,
you
it's a
mean.
little ridiculous.
So in other words, I'm wondering if they're not waterproof. By the time she went from land to water, then it dropped the signal.
Because it killed the electronics in her car.
Okay, that's what I'm
Exactly.
wondering. But what I do think it helps is I really think it does help recover all of these people who like when they're caught in the snow and they fall, they drive off a snowbank or you drive off a cliff and you're in a ravine. You can get rescued, I think, a lot faster nowadays with this technology than not having it. There's dead silence.
Well, look,
I
I'm
think
just
I
saying,
think it's I think
if you
this
don't
new
want your car data, if you don't want your car data telling on you, do not upgrade anything, and you better go buy you a what is it, a T Type 2 or Type 4 model Ford.
I think this new
Go
stuff
get a
is
moped.
amazing. It's amazing, and it gives you hope that there shouldn't be
I
all of
like
these things
I
happening.
like it. I like it because I went on a journey to a rally many, many states away from here, over 1,200 miles away. In the meantime, before, while we were all planning this, I was getting death threats because I was going to a rally. And I had my husband check everything as far as my vehicle. I had every known tracker known to man just in case I did disappear. So I'm telling you, I'm grateful for it. I'm just going to accept it. It's part of our world. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I feel the same. I would rather be able. I would want you ladies hunting me down and finding me if something happened to me, but um the technology today is so different from even 5 years ago to 10 years ago. And that's probably why we're seeing an increase in all of these cases being solved because there is this technology. So I'm grateful for it myself.
Me too. And I'm
I
grateful to
am
be
too.
seeing it utilized in criminal cases that are violent and stuff like that. I'm glad that it's being utilized in every aspect and even finding people, which is something I was going to talk about real quick. There was actually a case where they could not find this victim, this woman, and so this cop downloads all of the information off this guy's onboard services from his truck, and it leads him straight to her. And of
Mm,
course, sadly, she was dead already, but they can even use this information to recover victims. It's amazing technology.
it really is.
Fascinated by it. I really am. And I'm really glad I have it on my car. Really glad.
I don't know how
Now,
somebody would think that they could get away with a crime though, knowing now what I know that you guys have taught me because like I said, I'm not techie, so I don't know any of this stuff. But I mean, why would somebody like Bryan. Why would he drive his car there? Why would he shut his phone off? You know, none of that. Was it the heat of the moment? Was it passion rage filled and he just didn't think? Or did he mess up?
For all the
I think
knowledge he has, for all the knowledge he has, I think he was lacking knowledge.
I
Yeah.
think he thought if he's as long as he turned his phone off, he wouldn't be tracked. I don't think he thought his car would track him. I think he thought he had a clunker.
Hmm.
That's what I think. I don't think he thought for 1 minute anything else would track him but his phone. And it really surprises me that he would not think that. Well, I think he was so arrogant he never thought he'd get caught. I don't think he would ever get matched up to Ring camera or to any kind of surveillance footage on his travels all the way there and home. I think he thought he was invincible. That's why I think he went in there, whether there were 20 cars parked in the parking lot or, 7 people in the house. I don't think anything was going to stop him.
I
And as
have to.
far as motive,
I hope he
y'all know I have
talks.
my thoughts on that.
Even if he doesn't talk in 5 years or 10 years down the road, like comes forward, does a Dateline interview or something, so they can pick his brain, because I would love to know what he was thinking, what his end game was, how he thought he was going
Oh
to
my
get away.
gosh.
It's baffling. I can't understand it and I can't grasp it because it's just, whew.
Are we forgetting that Ted Bundy was a genius? Are we
Right.
forgetting that Ted Bundy
Right?
took all of these classes and everything, and look what happened to Ted Bundy? He got his little smart butt caught, didn't he?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Ted
but he did
Bundy
get
was.
away with it for a long time.
Yeah, Ted
Yeah.
Bundy his IQ was very high. He was an extremely intelligent uh, sociopath. I mean, he really had a high IQ and knew a lot about a lot of different things. But
So is that
he
what
he
gets in there? What?
he screwed himself on that. He got caught by his own mistake, and I kind of wonder if, in
Well,
fact, my opinion, if that's what might happen with Bryan Kohberger. He may have gotten if he's guilty, it may be his own mistake that catches up to him, and this could be part of it. What you girls are speaking of now.
I think it's the emotional depravity and the rage of their actions that gets them caught up. I think they plan it out perfectly. I think, but the mistakes they make during their rage catch them up. I think that because that's when the adrenaline's pumping. That's whenever they're focused on what they're doing. They're getting their high. And think about it. It's just like a drug. As soon as you start hitting the high from it, you start making mistakes. Think
Yeah,
Yeah.
about it.
something else takes over.
Yeah.
I feel like he was such a sick guy that his urge to kill far outweighed his fear of ever getting caught. His fear of multiple vehicles, his fear of multiple people in the home. He didn't fear getting caught. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. He had a mission. He set out to do it. And when he was in the throes of doing it, I honestly believe he was in his own zone, his own
Well,
little zone and world,
yeah.
until he finally snapped at some point, probably along that long, lengthy drive home. And as far as motive, I mean, we could go on for days, but I mean, nothing he did makes sense. Look at his crime. I mean, how can you say, oh, this is the motive? Oh, this is the motive. I mean, I do believe it was sexual in nature. I do believe there was an element of that to it. But as far as what is true is saying, I'm with you. I would love a sit down interview, tell all. What was going through your mind? Why? Who, what, why, and where? Just explain to me that. Because I'm interested in the psychology and the mind and the way that these people operate.
Right, but those people don't sit down very often and give the true encounters and their true motives and
I
stuff
know.
because they enjoy the element of you not knowing it. It adds to their superiority complex.
Well,
Grandiosity.
I do have a feeling in a few decades, he might want his little 10 minutes of fame again.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. I think Brian is enjoying the attention, but he doesn't want all the attention, if you know what I mean.
I think he's a narcissist. So in the future, he may very well, if he feels that it's settled down too much, he may very well want to talk to somebody to stir it back up again. Because I definitely think he's narcissistic. He was totally thinking just of himself and his own sick mind of what his plans were for that night. So I do believe that at some point in time he may very well talk.
I
think he
agree
was
with
very
Shar.
intelligent. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was just going to say, I think he was very intelligent and book smart, but I don't think he had a lot of common sense. And you guys know there's a huge difference in how people operate in the world, those that are just book smart versus those that have common sense. And if you have a lot of book smarts and zero common sense, you might not go that far. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You're liable, I see it happen a lot. I'm glad I have common sense. I'll leave it at that,
I'm glad I do too.
you know. Hey, Regina, I wanted to ask you, could you put the victims up on the screen?
Is the video
Of
over?
of of y-
Uh, but yes, Ann Taylor wanted the Thrive information and the cast information. That was important to her. And she also wanted the cell tower information. That's what she was requesting the full reports on at the end of the trial because she wants to know what she's dealing with. All I have is
Boy,
one
this
thing to say to Ann Taylor. Make sure you hire the best forensic data experts you can, Ann Taylor. That's all I
that's
can tell
right.
you.
That's exactly what I was just
That's
gonna say.
all I
This
can
is
tell
gonna
you.
be one expensive trial. Yep.
Hollis. Now you know I can't find those pictures now that you asked me to pull them up.
Very beginning of today's discussion in our
But I can't help but agree with Shar. As soon as he starts feeling irrelevant, and he will start stirring that pot again.
that's what I think. This,
Hollis,
yes,
I can't find them.
I'll resend it to you. That's what I
Where
think.
did you send them? I mean,
I send them to the YouTube, to the mod room.
Does anyone know for Kel? She said that she has a general question. How big do you think his defense team is? Just curious what people think.
well, I think it's a lot bigger than would happen than I would get if I unalived four people or unalived another person. I'm just saying. I think he's got quite the defense team. How many times have you seen someone on trial for murder where it hasn't been sensationalized by the media have this kind of defense team? Wouldn't you agree he has a good defense, big, nice, big, well financed defense team via the taxpayers of Idaho?
I agree.
I
I
think he
agree.
I think he has 10 people.
Regina, you can check your messages in Discord for your photos.
I was just
There was a question I was going to ask Shar.
Go ahead, hon.
In the Charles Manson murders, didn't Charles Manson wait a long, long time? And once all the generations had forgotten, didn't he start making like a stink and wanted to be like known again?
Oh, absolutely. He
That's
was
what I
on
thought.
every
Okay.
channel he could possibly be on.
That's
They
what
would
I thought.
interview him. Right.
That's how I feel
Do y'all
Kohberger's gonna
see?
be.
Do y'all see these people on the screen right now? Do y'all see Ethan and Xana smiling, living in their fullest potential? Do you see the enjoyment of the sunshine on her face and the look of happiness on Ethan's face? He is just happy to be there with her. And then if you look at Kaylee and Maddie, Maddie first, then Kaylee in the green. If you look at them, do you see the lights that they had and how beautiful they were? I mean, it's just, look, the thing about the justice for Maddie, Kaylee, Santa, and Ethan are this. If we do not get them justice, and if the wrong person is prosecuted, or if the right person gets off, then it is doing them a complete disservice to allow the monsters that took their precious lives to be free to do this to another precious life. That is the injustice that comes unless justice does come and the right person is convicted for these brutal, evil crimes.
I will
I
never understand the why.
Me neither. Me neither. And I pray for the families that they have enough strength to get through all of this nonsense that's going on now to delay and delay and delay because ultimately I understand what she's asking for and I get that she needs everything and that's the only way to have a good fair trial that he can't wiggle out of later if he convicted. But I'm just praying for the families to hang in there, to have the patience to know that this is every necessary effort is being made to ensure that when this trial happens, that it's absolutely rock solid. And I know it's agonizing. I know it is. My heart goes out to y'all. Um, just pray for you and hang in there and remember these beautiful people that had so much to offer the world. Don't let it end here. Let it go through the trial, however long it takes, and let them help change the world, even after they're gone.
And I know those words are important, but I can't help but think, you guys, like this family is sitting there going, why my child, why my child? Like I don't see a positive outcome or the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't see why these 4 lives were taken away and what purpose it serves. I find it to be absolutely horrific. I do not want to ever be a part of those families that have to deal with this, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And
And it
that's
never
where I
will, Hollis, because you
that's
have
where
a
I struggle.
conscience. It
That's a
never
good point,
will.
Regina. Good
It
point, Regina.
never will make sense to us who do have hearts and a conscience and
Good
our own
point.
convictions. It will never make sense to us because you cannot explain evil. You can
But I
only
will
identify it.
right, and
I
I will tell you this, I am so glad that if he is proved to be guilty, allegedly, that there at least it stopped further victims like the list that Ted Bundy had or the Long Island serial killer had. I mean, I think if I think this guy would have gone as far as he could go until he finally got caught. That's the only light I can see in this is that these 4 lives saved the brutality of multiple other people from being taken away. That's the only way I can look at it in a positive light.
I would be curious to. I'm curious about if Ann Taylor believes he's innocent or guilty. I mean, because she can defend him either way. She doesn't have to believe that he's innocent, but in her heart of hearts, when she lays down at night, I would love to know what her opinion is. Based on, I mean, she sees the evidence, so what she truly thinks. What do you guys
Well,
think?
Well, I saw her and her partner at that table, and they were so far to the far right as
Yeah,
they literally were like hugging the other side of the room. They were as
that's
far
true.
away from BK as they could be, it looked like to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I noticed
Yeah.
that.
Well, it would be like, look, that's the reason I've taken more of the constitutional aim at studying law, because to be honest with you guys, I can't be that person that convicts an innocent person, or that person that defends someone that whenever I look at the evidence, I know that they're guilty. I can't make those decisions, is why I chose constitutional law, because it is always just, in my opinion, constitutional law is. Whenever it comes to criminal law and who's guilty and who's not, it's a thin line. And a lot of laws play into the fact that innocent people are convicted and guilty people are set free. And just like with Audrey Cunningham, whenever the laws go easy on criminals that have a violent history and stuff, you see the repercussions of it.
Yeah, they progress. They elevate. They do more.
Regina, I wanted to ask you one thing about the Audrey Cunningham case, because I know we covered it and then we needed a break.
Right? Okay.
I, I did see where Grandma Cunningham and Bio Dad Cunningham, Grandpa Cunningham actually, came
Hmm.
back. Captain Grandpa Cunningham came back and made a statement on behalf of the family stating that they did a background check. Now, I have a problem. I have a problem, and I want to tell you why. Number one, you have a at least 11-year-old or younger child tattooing somebody, which is, and she's being videotaped, which is completely illegal. Number two, you have Grandma Cunningham taking a field trip to Florida with this guy on a vacation, all honky dory in the front seat. And then number three, you've got the son posing in a photo with matching bracelets, and this killer is doing the Aryan Nation symbol. So, what part of this whole process of, oh,
Oh, you're
I
talking about
believe
you're talking
the,
about peace signs in the Aryan Brotherhood, right? You're talking about that photo?
yeah, I kind of have a
Yeah.
problem with the normalization of the awfulness of her childhood to think that these people would actually go, I think we need to do a background check. I'm not buying it, and I'm raising the bullshit flag. I'd like anyone in chat to put a one if you think that family is doing the bullshit flag on that they did a background check. And I support the mother. One, if you believe the bullshit flag on the family, Grandma Cunningham, Grandpa Cunningham,
Um,
and
Hollis,
Biodad
can we call it
Cunningham.
the BS flag? Can we call
Yeah,
it the BS
yeah,
flag?
the BS flag. Sorry,
Thank you. Thank
because I saw that came out, and I sat on that for a day, and I scratched my head and scratched my head, and finally
Bing bong.
I finally was like, girlfriend, you
Ding
you
dong.
read that, you caught the clue in a few seconds. Don't try to
Bingo.
backtrack and try to justify. I always try to find the good in people, but I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I
You know
Well,
mean,
let me tell
something?
you this. Let me tell you this, and I think Beautiful Messy Bowl says it perfectly, because let me explain it to you like this. I did a research on him, the most basic background research on him, and found out of his violent criminal history. So, and it being on multiple occasions. So, I cannot agree that grandma and grandpa did any kind of background check unless all they did was went and looked his name up as a registered. Does that make sense?
girl, his criminal history was longer than a CVS receipt. Y'all know what I'm talking
National
about.
Geographic doesn't have that many episodes or illustrations, okay?
Yeah,
Well,
somebody wasn't paying attention or turned the other way or just didn't want to be bothered with it, in my opinion, because you couldn't have not known by the behaviors that were being exhibited, like the tattooing, the like Hollis said, posing with the picture with air, all of those things. You didn't see any of that? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
And
I
honestly,
fail to see where there's ever even a chance that they bothered to give that any follow through. They spent all of their time and their effort pitting that child against her own mother. And I feel like they were power tripping over having control over that. And this forced him upon her, in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't think that little girl had much of a traditional childhood for sure. I think that she
Hello?
I think what is true accidentally muted herself.
I think she accidentally there. Oh, no. We,
Are you there?
What is true? We're here.
yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
No, you
I don't
kind of
know.
went out for a second.
Um,
You-
yeah, I just feel like there were signs, they avoided it and chose to they were busy. They were busy doing other things, and this poor little girl missed out on what life should be like for a 10-year-old girl, in my opinion.
I don't think they even paid attention to signs. That girl should not have been tattooing. She should have been in her room with loud music on, with her phone in her hand, being yelled at to clean her room. Not, hey, come tattoo my buddy. You know what I mean? Around those people. I think she was doomed from the get go. The minute they took that
And
that child needed to be with her mother. I feel terrible for Cassie. I really, really do. I
and you
think she
know,
got the raw end of that deal.
the
100%.
people that were getting tattooed by her are just as wrong as the father allowing it to happen.
Well, we know who she was tattooing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the person that killed her. So of course it was. You know what I mean? I mean that's
Oh, I didn't know it was just him. I thought it was other people too.
No.
My fault. Sorry.
right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I've just
Right.
I've just noticed that well, we've had several young female children die at the hands of a male, whether it was a father or a person that they were came in contact with, and it's just I think we need to watch our kids more. And just like Elijah View, there you go. There's a kid that was taken to a man for discipline, and where's Elijah?
Where's Elijah?
You know, I
Why are they searching
really,
a landfill? Why are they searching a landfill? Where's Elijah?
you know
What's
what? I
what's going
really
on?
think it's time we all open our eyes and pay attention to these children and what's going on, and maybe be just a little more self aware.
Right? See
I'm
something,
sure it's
say
hard to
something.
tell, but still,
Poor little Elijah Page, yes. Yes.
if you can't take care of a child and you have hate in your heart, don't have a child. It's that easy.
Another thing I kind of wanted added to that thought is if you're out somewhere, observe your surroundings, of course. But if you see a child that may just glance your way and have a fear in their eye, or a child that is just being terribly treated by the mother or father, doesn't matter which one, report it. What difference does it make? If there's one child that could be saved by somebody's pulling their arm and they're looking back at you like they're scared to death, walking through a parking lot, what harm is there to have it checked out? We've got to
And you,
protect these children. We really need to keep our eyes open on the situation. It's getting huge.
I agree with paying attention. I do, Char. But also, I'd like to highlight something beautiful. Messy Ball said, "Well, what about that little girl Madeline that just went missing in Florida, and the mom's boyfriend was just arrested? Another situation where the school hasn't didn't contact mom until a school didn't contact mom until after school." Okay. Also, um, you guys, yeah, I see it. I feel the vibes. It's a lot like Audrey's case. Apparently, Dad had child uh obscenities on his phone.
Yep.
Um, and and y'all know what I mean, obscenities.
Yeah.
And from what I'm understanding, you guys, it was of the stepdaughter Madeline that is missing those obscenities. He's been arrested on those charges of having stuff in his phone. And if I'm not mistaken, from what I've read, it is of her. So, and from on her phone too. So this situation with Madeline is very serious and very scary. But until we have more information come in, there's just, we don't have a lot to talk about other than this is another case where someone is being a pedo or a pedmo, and now a child is coming missing. And it's a
Yeah.
complete failure of the sister, a complete failure of the system on every single level, in my opinion.
And yes, beautiful messy ball. It was the boyfriend, Stefan. What's his last name?
It was the stepdad, boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah, it was the boyfriend. He's the one that had the obscenities on his phone. He was the one
Yes,
that was last seen with the daughter. And his name
yes,
is Stefan. It's Stephan Stearns. Sterns.
yep. And the difference in this case is it is the person that was in her life for a long time, you guys,
Yep.
from everything I'm
Another
seeing and
one.
understanding. Yep.
But Paige and I discussed this earlier today. A lot of people are wondering, like when I was in high school, I did the same thing, Paige. I skipped school. They called me or my parents or something. I don't remember what it was. I don't know how I got away with skipping school one day, but it petrified. Oh, I called into the school as my parents. There were a couple of us that skipped in. We all went to the dentist conveniently for the whole day, right? So obvious. They never called my parents. But today, oh my word, you would not believe what you have to go through. You have to literally log onto your computer, log into a parent portal, go in and check. If you need to check your child out, you put in a notice 24 hours before so that the office has it. They do not accept a phone call. They do not accept a parent written note. You pick up your child, you go to the dentist, you give your child the dental note to turn in, and based on whether your child turns it in or not, which obviously mine does not, this is how I get notified that my child missed school for that whole part of the day. I get a
Right.
notification 3 days later in my email that my child was marked absent. So I'm assuming that might be across the board. It may be big town versus small town. It might be school versus school, but
Yeah,
in our
it
independent school
is.
district system, it is a common parent portal, Skyward. If y'all know those names, you know you're clicking on it for everything. And I don't get a phone call. I mean, I would know my daughter didn't come home that night,
Right.
but you literally will not know. I don't know when my daughter hasn't turned in
Okay.
her note for 3 days. I'll get the notice 3 days later. So, and I wonder, I don't want to blame
Hollis.
teachers because things are hard to see, but
Right.
people, if you see something, say something.
If you see something, say something. And with that said, you guys, we've been live over 3 hours. I'm hungry. I'm hungry, and I need to potty and get a drink. And so, with that said, do we have any final thoughts, you guys?
Just have a good night, everyone. Be safe.
Oh,
Um,
wait a minute. Wait a minute before I forget. Hollis, do you want to give the dates in order real quick for the court hearings for Bryan Kohberger one last time?
Ooh, that might be rough. I'll top him out and give him to you.
I
Well,
just
I
want to
meant for
say
the
thank
audience.
you for
I meant
everyone.
for the
I want to
audience, Hollis.
Oh. Well, I have it roughly written, and I didn't catch anything earlier than before the November.
shit.
the November date, but basically the main ones, I mean, there's going to be a few before we get there, but the main ones would be on January 31st of 2025. No, November 2024, jury pool questionnaires. January 31st, 2025, exhibit list to be exchanged and jury instructions. November 22nd, 2024, deadline for pretrial motions. December 13th, 2024, responses. December 20th, 2024, replies. They did say January 6th through the 10th of 2025, discuss some of those hearings over the responses and the replies. And then in Judge John Judge, that's so hard to say. They both agreed that at the end of August of 2024, all discovery should be given to both parties. And in
Sammy left.
September of 2024, September 6th, all discovery. Oh, they decide everything
There
on
she is.
September 9th was
Oop.
decided that all discovery actually be. Something was on September 9th, and I'm not quite sure which it was. But I know March 3rd is the change of venue. April 17th of 2025. April 17th of 2025 is the alibi. They must have that. And they're all aiming for a June 2025 trial date. Because, they argued back and forth and would finally settle on a date. So that's kind of my rough draft.
That'll work.
I mean, I want to write it out better. I want to watch it again and write everything down so I know for sure.
Right.
But
And then maybe we can get you to post that in the comments underneath the video.
oh, there you go. That would be a good idea. I'll work on that.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you, sis. All righty. Char, is there anything you wanted to add before we go, love? Oh, and congratulations, you guys. Char is going to be a great grandma. Somebody got a great grandma. Somebody got induced.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody who's come in tonight, especially our wonderful mods. You all do such excellent work. And I hope you all enjoyed the show. Thank you.
And Sammy?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that comes and everybody that asks such interesting questions. I love that people want to learn more. So do we. And we're just going to keep that ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is truth? Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think she's muted again and she doesn't even know it.
I'm trying to unmute her, but it says I'm not allowed to. Uh-oh, she lost connection.
She lost.
We have lost. We have lost a crystal.
Aww.
We have lost a crystal.
Well, until she comes back in, I'll say this. I love the fact that, yes, knowledge is power, low 12. I want to say I love all of our mods. They do an amazing job. I love our panel. We do an amazing job. We try to bring as much as we can. I think we all have our own little saying. I know Char's is just be honest. Mine's is who did it. We all have a little bit of a Columbo saying behind us, but I like what we're doing. I like that. I like what we're doing. We like to crime chat. This is literally us crime chatting.
Yep.
We constantly crime chat.
Exactly. Because we all have our own reasons and our own experiences that bring us to this table to talk about these crimes. And that's something that each of us bring to the table as our own aspect and the element of the story whenever it does come to crime, and also digging deep into crime. And I just want to say, with that said, I appreciate all you guys. I don't know what happened to Crystal, but she has vominosed or something. I think we've lost her. So
you know what I'm
with
going
that
to say?
said,
That's a wrap. Regina, it's all yours, girl.
bye, Hollis. Love you. Bye, Char. I love you. And bye, Sammy. I love you. And with that being said, you guys, kindness is free. Be nice to one another. And if you see something, say something. Lock your windows and your doors. Protect those that you love the most. Be vigilant. And look, it doesn't cost anything to spread a little love, but it costs so much to spread hate. Um, the smallest kindness can affect someone's life in the most drastic way. It can even save a life. So if you ever get the opportunity to be kind, be kind. You never know. You never know when you just might save a life. And with that said, blessings, friends, and good night.